Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, coming to you after a very tough game for your Seattle Seahawks going against this Giants team at home. In what for me is it sort of initially savoring the flavor and letting it digest in the bowels of my belly. Feels about as bad as a loss as I can remember in recent history, and as has been, as much as you're going to hear from me in this discussion, common themes, common tropes with this team that we've seen over the past couple of years that just continually show themselves, and they can get very close to feeling like they're right there ready to break through, and they always seem to fall right back down to the bottom. And not the bottom is the worst in the league, but kind of bottom as far as square one, back to scratch. Got to put it all back together again. You're not building upon something. It's just like all kind of collapses down on itself. And there's plenty to get through in this game. This is going to be, no doubt today, I'll tell you now, not a long post-game discussion. I will do a post-game video. I'll get into some of the details of the game within that video to a degree. Not a lot I want to really unpack in this game or talk about, because it's disappointing from my perspective on this on a couple of levels. Because of the fact that you're beat in the same manner by which you have been beat so many times over in recent years. And that to me is very dissuading when it comes to McDonald to lean into what has been a strategy prior that once again has failed so many times over. To make things easier, to allow easy openings for an opponent to where they want to attack. You know, which again, commonality that you see over and over again. But also the feeling of hoping this season a little bit to a degree that you can maybe even slide this year and sort of cheat a year. It's a cheat if you do it. I'm being greedy by wanting it, you know, but on that 3-0 start, many of you wanted the same thing and saw and hoped the same thing. Whereas you look at that start and you go, okay, with as fast the defense suddenly came together, we can maybe get to that contending state this year. It's not a matter of talent. We have the talent. It's a big part of Wes wondering about whether or not the scheme was what was holding us back and what could come forward now with this new charge. And I think what we saw instead was a little bit of a mirage at this point as we look at these other two games. I think it's a little bit of a weakened opponents you got to face, good conditions for you to take advantage of in those three games than it is the real thing. And I think that, as I said at the start of the year, and the place that we'll have to keenly monitor and track is a little bit of the expectation level and our sense of patience for the team this year. Not in the long term, not in all the big picture discussions that have to be undertaken in the grand scheme of things, but in this season, outlook of the team, expectation of the team. This is a loss that changes my outlook, not substantially, but heavily enough. I'm very, very annoyed with what I saw there today. You're going to get this new defensive coach in, lose a different way than how you've lost every manner prior. And I don't know what's got these defensive coaches so scared. Maybe it's just that the big play is just that foreboding. The big play is just, it makes you just tank your pants and drop a loaf. The second you see it as a defensive coordinator, your butt cheeks start sweating and those cheeks go, because man, the fear of the big play. It's so readily there. I need many men, drop back to a deeper zone, further back, all the way to the end zone, just in front of that, yeah. Cannot allow that big play. We have to have the fear of God of that big play. Zone, I tell you, gentlemen, and as many as I can back there. Because, man, they trust these front fours. Man, that front four defense has got to be getting it done, get it done. And it never gets it done. And for years, I've watched our DCs, endless parade of DCs, trusting a front four to generate pass rush on their own and not get it done. And again today, that's what you saw. Again today, more of that. So I'm going to struggle with this one. I'm going to leave this as pretty open discussion from my chat and let you guys kind of take this one. I'll give you guys my real full thoughts in the video breakdown later tonight when I drop that. But I'm very I'm very upended in this one because for a variety of reasons. It's the tactical approach. It's the strategy. It's also the lifelessness by which the players on the defensive side of the ball played this game. They did not come out raring to go. That was not a championship style, a level of effort that you saw or intensity that you saw. We've seen it here. We've seen teams go to championships, and we've seen it recently. I'm not talking about legendary defenses. I'm talking about every man bought in, every man doing everything they can on every particular play to give you maximum effort. And if you saw that today, we saw a different football game. Because I saw a lot of piss poor effort on that defensive side of the ball. I saw guys a little slow to get to the spots, a little weak in the getting on blocks. I'm not seeing it on that side. I'm just not. And another part that's just, again, echoes of the former, which just makes it that much more frustrating, where I could be handling failures. You're stacking boxes, you're blitzing, you're getting beat over the top. Hey, coach, you're getting the new system on board, you're taking chances. You're a little weak because of your injury situation, so you're trying to overcome that weakness of injury by taking some chances to help your backups out. Great. I forgiven. I won't say a word about it. But the slow death, the take it any which way you want, just don't take it deep. Man, I'm over that. I could not see that in that game another time and be happy. That gets old. Man, does that get old. So let's see where you guys are at with this one. But I'm definitely a little bit struggling here on this one, is to find some sort of crack or silver lining on this. I know there'll be some that'll say it's a game. Any given Sunday, you got to flush it. And they're not wrong. I'm not pushing back too much on that, but I'm having a hard time reaching to that feeling right now. Maybe you give me 24 hours and I can turn back around on this one, but I have sat through so many NFL Sundays recently in the last few years watching this style on defense. And I don't get the part with the intensity. I don't get the thing where you're a multi-million-dollar athlete and I can feel like you're not giving me max effort to feel at times. Like, I'm not getting everything out of you. You're kind of playing in... I was joking about in the Bleacher Reports, the same energy of a guy clocking into a construction site. Cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. It's a little bit of that feeling energy for me. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Let me know if I'm off my rocker today, you guys. I appreciate you guys watching and tuning on in. As I said, this will be a fairly quick one on my side of it, because I don't know how much patience I got tonight, but we're going to roll. And I want to hear you guys, and maybe you'll make me feel better about this. Hand Grenade says, you can use other players to help you jump on the final play. I'm sure that'll be talked out. The jumping play is definitely one I don't like. You guys know I'm consistent on this part of it, as I always like to say, is that you guys will find me, I'm this way like you guys, on the second Super Bowl play where, the second Super Bowl where everybody gets caught up on the second Super Bowl play. It's all about this one play and the spot on this one. It's that one play. It's the one play. We didn't lose this play. We didn't lose this game because a guy jumped over our field goal unit and blocked the kick, and the officials could or could not have called it. And they probably should have called it, or maybe they not called it. But it does go a little bit null and void to the bottom line of snap in and snap out. Why'd you lose this game? Was there bigger problems at play here? Was there other things that really should have been taken care of, never to put you in that position to have to make it about you kicking a field goal at the end to tie it, just to take you into overtime? Because let's remember, that field goal wasn't per game. That would have just taken us into overtime, and no guarantee we would be able to go get the win even at that point, unless Geno and boys maybe got the ball first. But I get that that's a point of discussion, and I'm not against anybody telling me, or you can sell me completely on that play in particular was one that they missed, but I didn't think it was a badly officiated game. I didn't think officials cost us this game, and I did feel like there was a lot. There's about 5 other big major things in this game to me that come out of it that I'd be first wanting to really lock in on as to your reasoning as to why you lost than the kick there. Elias says, "HawksNest, hello. I'm in pain." Well, I hope you probably can feel the same for me here. I'm in the same kind of spot. Okay, Kat, I need you to give it a break. I'm not in the mood to do this dance with you right now. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, what a clown show. We made that walking meme of a quarterback, Danny Dimes, look like a Hall of Famer. I've seen better effort from an American politician. I don't know. Did the guys take Ambien before the game? Is that what happened? I don't know. Did we get an indica strain going through the locker room? Somebody make it make sense to me. I don't know how professional NFL players get paid, and you walk out there and you give obvious effort where you're making business decisions on the football field, especially defensively. It's hard to hide. It's very hard to hide when you see it out there. And I've came back a couple times in this game and go, ugh, the effort on that play was just remarkably bad. I'm not talking about that you this or that, like what was the effort on that play? Felt like the defense was everybody looking around for somebody else to make a play today. Clown show's right, Jeffrey. Clown show's right. Sorry. It's an accurate portrayal. George says, you look at videos more than I can and maybe have access to videos more than I can, but the ball was hiked and they didn't stand up. They went down. That's against their that's against their natural nature. So that would cut you off there. Sorry. Cut off your message there, George. Hollow. We have no O-line or defense, and Grubb doesn't like running the ball. All recipes of a losing pie. Very true. Trey, the play of the game had to be the 102-yard fumble recovery for the touchdown. Yeah, that was pretty insane play. Pretty insane play there. Part though, there's a little bit even ominous to it as you got the touchdown, but even on the fumble, it's like you guy didn't really cause the fumble. He just kind of fell on his buddy's helmet. The ball bounced off the helmet and bam, bam. Deleted says Grubb needs to be fired or demoted. Spud said Brando, Grubb has 2 second-round picks in his backfield and 7 carries. Why? I don't know. That'll be definitely a part that I point to in my wrap-up video we post tonight talking about that, and that's something I think is a valid criticism to point to on Grubb on this. I think defensively there's really a lot of the blame on this pie has got to be dished out to them. But from Grubb's standpoint and helping out his defense in a day where the defense is having a hard time getting some time of possession and control of the game, you're seeing no commitment early on to running. It's not even a matter of you just getting behind the score. It's that you saw this last week as well in the first half in the Detroit Lions game where you're just bailing out on even trying to run at all. It's like a very minute couple of sprinkled carries in through a half. And I get that the Giants lived with the ball in the first half, and that's a part of that. But you've got, as you say, the 2 second-round running backs in the backfield. We saw what Walker did last week, but there wasn't much commitment to getting it done in there. And you're not trying to use Laviska Shenault, any kind of fly sweep stuff. Very little bubble screen game with it either. And we come back to why does the pressure start to mount more and more over the course of a game than on Geno? And why do we make the pass very hard on the pass protectors? Because when the defense knows you're not going to run the ball, they're going to look at this tape. They're going to look at last week's tape against Detroit. What do you think the Niners are going to do? It's going to be pinning their ears back from the jump. And Grubb's going to have to find a way to adjust to that. I know he wants to pass, but 75, 80% of the time, we're getting into a little bit of gonzo mode, I think, at that point. Nate says, K9 can find ways to get yards. We don't need to trust Geno on 40 snaps. It'd be nice to balance it out. I'm with you guys 100% on this, so 100%. Pretentious Cameron, thank you for the $5 donation. And Cameron, thank you for all your donos today during the stream. The good news is this team has faced a lot of adversity in 5 games, and they fought back to almost win in both of their losses. They don't give up. There's no doubt about that. Defense has shown some resiliency in these games, and it's not been made to order easy on the way the games have played out. I think the schedule was made to order easy a little bit to start things out. But there's some fight in this team. There is, in their ability to come back from it. There is a season right now that's still readily within Seattle's grip to control their destiny and their fate. They have a relatively easy schedule for the rest of this year. They are at the top of the division. The division looks weaker than recent years. There's a lot set up, much like the 3 games to start out the schedule, Cameron. There's a lot set up in the Seahawks' favor here for this year for them to go out there and take advantage. But there's a lot in-house that they've got to improve to get to that point of things. But certainly not. Good point on that. No give up from this team and how they've played. That's for sure. Christian, thank you for the $2 donation. Grubb's calls, especially that last drive, is yikes. Some brutal calls. He has possessions where he's trying something and you go, okay, a little too outside the box, my man. And too many of the inconsistency in those drives at times, I think sometimes getting a little too cute. And the fourth down play action there with Geno, where he ends up with a guy right in his face. What are we doing there? The play before Jackson Smith that he dropped at the end, there was a call there that was like, what are you doing? What is that call there? Again, another play there where it would have been, for a guy who's got any kind of ready-made order having the run game, I think you're in like a 2nd and 4 at that point. Go back to Charbonnet up the middle. They're trying to rush. They're trying to pin their ears back. Charbonnet up the middle, go get the first down. You got plenty of time on the clock at that point because of how fast you've gotten down the field. But he gets back into that pass. Eric Michelet, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Eric. He says, I tried to warn everyone. We weirdly played terribly at home against the Giants. No explanation. Geno was the only bright spot today, and he faded. And even he faded. Kind of. I mean, he had you down at the end there, Eric, where, he was able to, that should have completed that throw to JSN, and then who knows what happens. I think we probably got that first down. There's a really good chance we go and get a touchdown there. And then Geno's day, of course, looks remarkably different. But, was he great today? Maybe not great, but very good. I think, as you say, maybe one of the few only real bright spots in this game when you look at it. He throws for 284 yards. He also adds another 72 yards on the ground as a runner in this game. So using his legs in addition to throwing. And again, with Geno, the degree of difficulty is part of, I might even lean on saying close to great on this. We got to keep in mind the degree of difficulties. We come back to it, Eric, with Geno on that, even on, he's again having a defense living on the field. Again, pass protection not working. Again, not any kind of consistent running game. And again, even on top of it, he's got 3 times today where his receivers dropped the ball and then DK's fumble on top of it that he had completed. It was the degree of difficulty. It's part of the appreciation of Geno's play is degree of difficulty. What's up against him to perform how he performs is there on a weekly basis, and he's got to go through it all the time. And it's not all of what all quarterbacks have to deal with on a weekly basis, and he just does. And man, it would be great if we could get that stuff cleaned up. It really would. But you did try to warn us, Eric. You did try to warn us, man. George Harmon coming in with a 20. I said a $20 donation. He didn't have any chat. It didn't have any message in your dono there, George. But man, thank you for the $20 donation. You guys, it was a tough day today at the office for our Hawks, but you guys were as kind as ever here on the Nest and still continue to be as kind today during this stream. I thank you. Thank you so much for that support and all you guys do on that for this channel. I really, really do appreciate it. George, you are amazing, man. Thank you for the $20 donation. I salute you, sir. God's Gang, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, I think we are experiencing growing pains. Unfortunately, as we knew, we're going to be there with a brand new head coach. Also, we are a very young team. Some very good points built within that donation. Thank you for that. And ones that I entirely do agree with. This is a little bit of a reality check kind of game for me. I'm like all of you guys out there. I'm not above it. Where hot start, 3-0 start like that, knowing the talent on this team, you start to dream big. You start to go, man, let's go to the moon this year, right now. But I think that there was a gut punch last week, and I think it was a reality check this week. And that's when we got to look back and go, okay, let's calm ourselves down. Let's calm down the fervor that's there a little bit. Let's resettle this up. It isn't giving up on the team. It's not me jumping off or saying, well, you're giving up on them, huh? No, it's to say a lot of what will drive opinion in the fan base and for myself at times will be the expectation. And sometimes expectation is true and right to be there where you have every reason to expect this should be that, and this should be that, and this should be this. And then when it's not, you hold the feet to the fire. But then there's the other side of it. The youngest coach in the NFL coming in, first year, to God's Gang's point, a very young team. We're going to finish out. We're going to be in this year when you look at the bottom line, like what, the 3rd youngest team in football or somewhere in that neighborhood of things. And with a young team, what do you get? Inconsistency. And what have we gotten so far? Inconsistency. And so I think those are all very good points. So thank you again for the donation. And that's the place where I'm going to be reaching back a little bit more to in this year. That's where thought coming into it was going to be. But again, you start to dream big when you have the start that they had, and how you think it can come to really, really, really come together. And it's just a bit of a reality check now after this week. Well said though, God's Gang. Experiencing growing pains is a great way of putting it. William Leonard has been a Hawks Nest member for 30 months, going into almost 3 years here. Says, I cringe at all the collective "I told you so" from every single pundit I'm going to hear who predicted we were going to bomb all season. Shut the F up. I agree, man. You see it with opinions on players, and you see it opinions with the team, or you see it opinions with the whatever else may be out there. It's people that will have the preloaded opinion on something, and then they look for the confirmation. And I'm probably guilty and susceptible to this. I try to fight against it, for the record. I try not to lean into that if that's a feeling that's out there where, oh, here's something that confirms exactly what I thought. So that only further and makes it the truth. We are 5 weeks into the season. We just passed a quarter of the year. Nothing in the NFL is settled. Nothing is certain. What it looks like today is not how it's going to look tomorrow. It is not a sprint. It is a bit of a marathon. So we're going to learn long-term with this team where they're at on that. But you're right. Those pundits nationally, you're going to hear probably from people this week. They're going to be the Carroll people who've been, they're silent through the first 3 weeks. These are the other thing I liked about these folks with the biases stuff is that they won't be there every week during the first 3 weeks, They won't be there every week during the first 3 weeks going, no, I thought McDonald was a disaster and this was going to be horrible from the start and he's the worst and I'm being made to look wrong this week. They're quiet that week. They're quiet the second week. They're quiet the third week. And, I'll suddenly now see them into week 4 in my chat where now they get to come out there and crow a little bit. And not that they're not being proven or looking right on this day versus other days, but take it all into account, right? Let's take it all into account on it when we're trying to figure out what the truth is of our reality of this team and what they are and where they are. And, we're on to the new now. This ain't about the old. This ain't about talking about Russell Wilson's and Coach Carroll's and going back to the prior. That this is about the new and the change and the transfer and the growing pains as God Gang brought up just a second ago and getting through this process and understanding that we're on the right road here. I do believe that. Does it set this year? Does it all take root this season? Maybe, maybe not. Should we still be patient with it and give it its time? Because conceptually it is smart and you can see how this plan will be the right one long-term. I think absolutely yes, in my opinion. Empower Code, coming to another $20 donation. My goodness. Thank you for all of the support, you guys. Unbelievable. I appreciate you for that. Another $20 drop in the house. Says Brandon, I'm crushed. It feels like we've come so far, only to realize that we might be re-entering the reality of the past 5 years. Soft zones, loose tackling, inconsistent offense. When can we finally realize our potential? Well said. Very well said. And a place that I think that I've sensed even on the chat before we went live tonight during the stream, a place that I think the chat very much feels like, and I'm right along lockstep with the lot of you on this one, where part of my disenfranchisement here comes not from being an emotional fan running game by game and letting my emotions be steered by that. It's the frustration to what's in your donation there of this being years of a process playing out in the same way. I related it with Carroll, where 2020, I said with Coach Carroll, look, it's like a Netflix show. And the first season's great, and it was unique and original, and twists and turns. You didn't expect it this way, and didn't expect it that way. And then you get to the second season, and they add a few different actors and this and that, but it's the same storyline. It's the same beat for beat. They're just almost like they're just trying to copy it. And it was the storyline described before, as you say, loose defense, bad tackling, scheme getting outmatched every week, poor effort out there and what you're seeing. And we're to like season 10 now of that Netflix, of watching it play out, of that same season over and over. And results are beyond diminishing at this point. And so it does hit to that spot, I think, as it's hitting some fans in this one post game of saying, I've got PTSD. I got shell shock. I got Seahawks defensive shell shock. Every time they take the field. It's how, we start to sense that old kind of failing away. And it just fails from every direction like today. No ingenuity in the scheme. God-awful effort from the players. No pass rush. Wide open holes in the zone coverage. Nothing even coming close to a turnover. Your one turnover today was caused by the own teammate. Their tight end did a better job at creating turnovers today than your Seahawks defense did. And you go, how can you have nothing defensively to hang your head on? How can you not defensively coaching go, okay, we're halfway through this thing sliding down the line. We got to pin this on something. What can we pin this on? Stack boxes, blitzes, tight man-to-man coverage. What can we do here? And then you don't feel like there's any real adjustments being drawn from the defense as you watch those games play out. And so you not only get a thorough trouncing, but it's done so on the back of almost the same strategy throughout the course of the game. It's two screenplays being run back-to-back almost that are the exact same screenplays that both work. And you go on the first screenplay, you go on the first point. How do you not be prepared for that screenplay in the first place? How do you not be ready for that with this Giants team? That's almost 60% of their offense when you watch them at times. Yeah. It does feel that. And when can we finally realize our potential? I mean, I think you can realize your potential at any time, but these things are going to have to click into a place of being going from deficits to positives. Maybe they don't have to be dominant, but they've got to go from deficits to positives. League back end pass protection, deficit to positives. Some sort of consistent running game within a course of a whole game, deficits to positives. A defense getting out schemed, deficits to positives. You got to start flipping those over if you're going to get to that potential. That's the whole point of hiring McDonald on this, and I think it'll happen long-term, as I say. I'm encouraged long-term and hopeful and optimistic. I truly am long-term on this team. But the discussion for today, as we are in this moment, is about today, is about the here and now, is about this game after the Giants and where the Seahawks team stands. And that's just where I find myself at as it is right now in power, right along with you. Thank you, man, for that $20 donation, and maybe we'll feel better after 24 hours. Luckily, this is at least a quick week, so maybe the chances, we at least have a chance for them to turn this around fast. Christian, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Christian. He says, no more home field advantage. Fans chanting on offense and sit quiet on their phones on defense. Fans who pay high ticket price aren't the old rabid base. Yeah, I dropped a video on my Clips channel talking a little bit about this, and we did speak about it in the live stream a couple times throughout this offseason about a sad continuing tradition that seems to be going on at times in Lumen Field that makes very little sense, or does make a lot of sense, like to your point on about it, maybe the ticket prices going up have pushed out some of the rabid fans who would have been in there otherwise. And I think that that's very true. And what it's caused is a quieting of the stadium. If you go back and watch this game, go take note of how often Daniel Jones is able to go and he's basically reading whole chapters of books up at the line of scrimmage to his players around him. He's communicating everything to the nth degree at that line of scrimmage. That does not happen if the fans are being as loud as they normally are. And when people like me talk about this losing of the tradition that's been going on in recent years when it comes to the fan base in that stadium, and that the newest generation going in there, or it's just the rich people going in there that don't give an F, we're losing something from a traditional standpoint, and you're losing an edge that you can provide your defense. And I think that that was a bit at play today. I wouldn't put even a big part of the blame upon it, but it would have been nice to have. Other defenses in the past in Seahawks history have had it, even defenses that haven't been good, even teams that haven't been good. But I think that did stand out to me too, Christian, today, and watching the telecast, is that you shouldn't be able to communicate that much. All those checks and da-da-da-da, and da-da-da-da, and you over did and you did da-da-da, and it's like, man, he was reciting War and Peace before every freaking snap. When did that start to become a thing in Lumen? Well said, Christian. Y2K, thank you for the $5 donation. Positives are people underrate having your interior pressure defensive line. Our QST mid-round pick could be a game changer. First round pick could be a game changer. Oh, Byron Murphy. Sorry, Y2K. It took me a second on that. It's my bad. So definitely missing the interior pressure in this game. Yeah, I think Leonard Williams is playing well below 100% with that rib injury, and nobody else was able to get much done in there. What did we end up with on the day here? So, excuse me. Wait. So Daniel Jones had 34 dropbacks, and you managed 5 quarterback hits. 3 sacks, but that's not going to get it done. So yeah, you need some more help inside there. That's for sure. Losing to Chenna and being Ababoye out as well off the edge, I think probably also impacts it as well. So Chenna seemed like he was out of this pretty quickly too, Y2K. Sonny Saldua Jr., thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate you for that. Good wake-up call. So we lock in. Let's bounce back. Yeah, let's bounce back, Sonny. I love the attitude and spirit. Thank you for the donation. It's a place where it does feel good that we get to go to Thursday on this. Niners might, this might be a tough one too. Let's see what the defense can maybe find a draw now on this, but it is nice to turn this around quick so we don't have to chew on it as long, because this is a brutal loss. But if last week didn't wake them up, if that's mom coming in saying, get up for bed, get up, school. Come on, I said, get up, school. And now she's come in and she's fed up and she's just throwing the ice water on top of you. She says, I said, get up. Well, you're tossing the ice cubes off your chest right now as you rise out of bed, hopefully. To your point, Sonny. But well said. Thank you for the donation. Cameron, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, we have lots of rookie coaches on this team. After 5 games, we are 3-2 and first place in the West. It was a bad game today, but plenty of season left. Well said on your part. Nothing is ultimately determined off the back of any single game in the NFL, and the start that you've had to the position that you sit. It's always a place you want to be in the NFL. It's where you hate where you're behind an 8 ball, or you have all this ground to make up, and you set it up like that for a season because it just makes other decisions get impacted in that way. But the Seahawks have set the stage for this season to be one where you still can go out there and take this division, and it's there. It's wide open as it's been in many different years here as it stands right now. So it just takes, as Sonny says, a little bit of a wake up. Hopefully they can do that on it. You're right about the rookie coaches. As we're saying below too, you got the young team. This is a combination between those two factors where you're going to expect those growing pains to be needed. And ultimately, nobody's should be jumping off with this team. It's just back to that. We got to make sure we're clicking in our patient button in our brain when looking at the team right now, rather than, hey, why aren't we at that contender state now? But thank you, Cameron. And Cameron, thank you for all your support today during the show and channel on the live stream and the play-by-play. I appreciate you for that. William Leonard, thank you for the... Oh, sorry. Nope, long live the king. William, you're above there. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. I'm still a little shaky on JSN first round draft. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. If you're going to be a slot guy like he is, you got to catch everything that's thrown your way. You got to have gluey kind of hands. I see too many drops from JSN over his first year in 4 games. I think he can be okay as a guy after the catch, but he is not a pure raw yak guy after the catch. He's nowhere in the vicinity of a Deebo Samuel type in any way, shape, or form. He's not near that area. And so puts all that much more onus upon what he does as a pass catcher and getting open and making catches. And his job is in there to move the chains. His job isn't to make those kind of catches that he dropped here today, and wasn't doing it purposely. But again, it's something I've seen enough of him for at this point that it's dissuading to me. and he's averaging about 9 yards a catch right now in this league. You know, it's still continuing a trend from last year where we're not able to get him to get the top taken off the defense. And I would like to see some more from him as well. I'm not saying I'm out on him or anything like that, but definitely it's you in the year 2 of this point right now. I think you're looking for a little bit more impact from him and what he brings to the table as a first round pick, as the first wide receiver taken in that draft. Agreed. William Leonard, thank you for the $5 donation, William. He says, what demographic has disposable income for these Hawks games? They used to be the Maryville, Puyallup, and Kent Seahawks. I don't know, man. Maybe it's the Redmond, Bellevue, Kirkland-ish probably area. I would guess maybe on that. And I don't know. I also don't understand why having more money makes you less silent going into the stadium. It boggles my mind, as I've referenced, that you have a tradition here that's pretty well set. We didn't start this 10 years ago with the Legion of Boom. The 12th man, the being loud. This has started since our induction. It's something that went across the landscape of different sports in the Pacific Northwest. If I go into Husky Stadium in 1990, if I'm watching a telecast of that great Husky team that won a national title game, I can hear the roar. I can hear the roar through my television. Watch a Sonic game, I can feel how loud it is in there. I was in the Kingdom during playoff runs in the 90s, and you can feel it turned up to 11, where everybody is screaming and into it, and just, you can sense it. This isn't something hard to feel or see when it's happening. But something now with the wine and cheese crowd has them coming in, not feeling afford to have to do that, or they don't want to do it, or they're willing to let this tradition die. But make no mistake about it, the tradition will die. If this is going to be the one that won't carry it forward because they can't be bothered because it's just too hard, it makes my voice hurt, and I don't let my voice hurt. I just want to eat my hot dogs. Well, tradition will die with it then. This great, cool, unique tradition, not only specific to us here in Seattle, not only specific to just the NFL, but the sporting world, goes to nil, and for no reason. I hope it doesn't continue. You got a first place team there today playing this Giants team, and it seemed like it was a church at times to me. Samuel, thank you for the $2 donation. Says our offensive line is actually pitiful. Geno is the truth. Geno is indeed the truth. There's no doubt in my mind about that with him and how he's played. And I love what Geno's bringing to the table. It's the sad part about all this right now, a little bit with the bad offensive line play, with a little bit of the underwhelming defensive line, and on the heels of this game is that we're not really still talking about really how good Geno's been, how much he continues to play really well and carry so much of the load for this team as well. Maybe not fully on his back, but a heavy amount of the load is on his back. He's the lead horse right now. And too much so probably to that degree, to your point on that, in regards to the offensive line. God's Gang, thank you for the $5 donation. You guys are amazing in your support. You put multiple donos. If you put one, I really thank you guys for that. This is what allows me to do what I do this week. We got a loaded schedule here as we're leading up to Thursday. We'll be doing 3 shows on Tuesday, maybe a couple shows on Wednesday, and then right in the Thursday game. I thank you guys for all you do here for the channel. God's Gang says, I want to know why we are passing so much when we have 2 good running backs. Where are the screens, fly sweeps? Once again, predictable offense. Your thoughts are my thoughts on this. I don't have an explanation or an understanding. We saw Waldron would get into this stage of getting too pass happy at times and bail on the run. We've seen with Grubb already multiple times he's done the same. And what's even makes it weirder is that this was on the heels of last week. You look for coaches to kind of learn lessons as they go along. And that's part of what jumps out in this game, was that there's 2 lessons both of our offense and our defensive coaches didn't learn here. Our defensive coaches didn't seem to learn the fact that undermanned, we can't run a 4-man box and soft zones on the backside and expect that that's going to get the job done. Didn't seem to learn that lesson last week. We needed that reinforced here again this week. Last week, Grubb didn't run the ball at all, basically in the first half, absent a couple runs. Then when he runs the ball and he's fantastic at running it into the third quarter, Doesn't learn his lesson off the back of that, applies the same kind of model here. Maybe it's that he doesn't want to run the ball till the third quarter because he knows that then it's going to be this really great effective tool to use because the defense is so amped up on the pass. And, that'd be great if you were maybe more productive in the passing attack at that point, or you had guys actually catching the freaking football. But that's not really been the case right now. So, yeah, I got to be balanced, my brother. You got to be balanced, my brother Grubb. And they're not. You speak about a couple other things that are parts, again, that I don't get. No screens, no fly sweeps. Not one fly sweep to Laviska Shenault this year. And here's my bottom line. No doubt about it, guaranteed to you. When we finally run a play to Laviska Shenault in a fly sweep, it's going to gain 6 yards. No doubt. No doubt. And then we'll not probably go back to it again for another 3 games. That's just the way it is. Can't ever have a fly sweep. I don't know why. I don't know why. But predictable offense is right. You're going to run at times 5-6 to 1 pass to run rate. If you're not going to utilize those creative methodologies of gadgety plays to keep the defense honest, then the defense is going to drive down on the simplified rushing attack. And that's what we have seen from these defenses at times when they have run early in games where you see all that early penetration is because you're not keeping them off suit. You're not misdirecting the defense at all with this offense right now. Another thing that stands out to me. But predictable as a bottom line, God's gang is right. Predictable. Simply that. Still can be effective, but it doesn't have to be so damn predictable. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. Says, one good thing we have is that empty formation. Empty formation's been a good executor for the Hawks. Yeah. And Geno seeming to able to really manipulate around it, especially finding at times those holes where guys are sitting down in the zones and they can really kind of get so many guys in traffic at that point. It pulls to the right spot. It's the main spread concept, I think, that he's been able to really lean upon there with this at times, with having those extra man running routes that you get in spread concepts to where, I can go find that. I can find that open guy who will be where the zone slides away from. I'm smart enough to locate that once that occurs. And he is more often than not. Yeah, the empty's been a very good set for them. I'd like to see the numbers out of it, but I'd imagine they've been very, very efficient out of empty. Janeth Kumar, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that. Janeth was at the Husky game yesterday, and I saw many people only clapping on third down. The small Michigan base actually were almost as loud as us. I've heard it from many people. And I'm not a young Johnny on the spot fan here in my fandom of just arriving here in like the last 10 years. I've been here right from the jump almost. And it's something from the community standpoint that's just lost and it's going away. And maybe it's just something that's just where it's going to roll and that we can't really, there's no way to recapture. It's a generational thing and the next generation just doesn't want it. Maybe it's an affluency thing where it's about those people who just have more money going in and they don't want to do it as much. But interesting to hear it's also funneling over to Husky game, where you think you'd get more younger fans in there, more of the student section type to be more boisterous. But I've also seen it in person going into the Lumen Field multiple times over for years now. For any time I've gone in there since about 2016, it's remarkably different in how loud it is. And it's not that we can't maybe occasionally crank it up back to some of that old volume, but it's just less frequent. And fans seem to be happy just to go in there and watch the game in silence. And why you'd want to stamp out such a great tradition as that prior, because that's what you're doing at that point. I don't get the thought process at all. You're an NFL fan, but I don't want to do this. You want to be in the game and be in the stadium and feel the environment, but I don't want to be fully in the environment. Like, should we wrap them in a bubble, walk in the stadium maybe? Because it doesn't get too loud. It's frustrating though, Janeth, because multiple generations carried this torch. It's like you've got an Olympic runner going from California. He's got to get all the way to New York, handed it off there in Nevada, handed it off there in Missouri, handed it off there in Tennessee. Decades. Again, through Appalachian, all of a sudden, They drop it as you're handing it off to them. Like, what are we doing? All that? We're going to come to a stop here? Have it come to a stop now? It's tough to see. Hopefully it doesn't continue, but it does seem like maybe a trend, and it's one that just doesn't, one that maybe just is a little bit inevitable, quite frankly. There's nothing that can be really done about it. But that's why I'm trying to put a spotlight on it, is make people aware of it. Make people aware of wearing their stadium, like, be a certain way. Like, carry on this tradition of your grandparents, not just your parents, but your grandparents who established this thing. And understand that you are the fandom that created the sport to create a flag because you were too loud. You are the fandom that has single-handedly at times almost won football games for your team by how loud you've been. Not single-handedly, a lot of times won the team. That the coaches would come back, the players would come back. The 12s got us the dub today. And that's going to go away because some fans just don't want to exude enough energy to make it happen again. Interesting. And even Janet with the Huskies, they can't say, well, we haven't won anything. Like, you guys just went to a national title last year. You got Michigan in the house. I know Rutgers loss was brutal last week, but come on. Kieran says, I'm going to say it. I don't know what the options are, but Tomlinson and Bradford need to be benched. You can put this on the defense rightfully, but this offensive line had their worst game so far this year. They were awful. I'm not against any kind of change across the board at this point. Certainly if you're going to, put some wake-up calls out there, then it's maybe going to take some big-time shakeups at this point, but I'm ready to see Mike McDonald do some shakeups because I can handle just getting outplayed. I don't like getting out-efforted, and that's been the case the past 2 weeks. Nate Smeltzer, thoughts on the Cam Bam penalty for jumping the center in 2016? This applied here fully with the Giants and was a penalty. How is it not getting talked about more is beyond me. Yeah, it's one that I'm a little unclear on the penalty with it, Nate. As I understand it, you can't be lined up over the top of the center and jump over the top of him. If you're lined up in the A gap, if you're lined to the side of the center, I'm being told you maybe kind of can. That maybe is wrong information I'm being supplied on my side of it. If it comes down to that, we'll learn the truth of it this week on where it applies, but I think that's part of this, Nate, is there's a little confusion on what really is and isn't there by the rule of it. And I haven't had a chance to even really look it up yet. But I think that the reason is as well that this isn't getting more concentrated on is I think a lot of people are looking at this game, though, too, and saying it's not a game about a blocked kick. It's a game about a lot of other things. And that those things have been things that have permeated this team for not just last week, but in recent years. And is this now going to be something of more of what we're going to see from this team going forward? As opposed to that being a bit of a fluky play on the line kind of call that could have gone either way. Good morning, football breakdowns. Guys didn't want to be there, laughing out loud. Kind of felt like that defensively. Felt like I had a couple guys on that defense that were like, I don't really want to play football today. King Bomber, we still played the Cardinals twice, who are 2-0 in the division. The Niners will kick our ass, and the Rams will be significantly more healthy when we play them. Not to mention, we play Green Bay, Buffalo, Atlanta, Chicago, Minnesota, and the Jets. Indeed. It's not going to be a cakewalk. Brian Kennicott, 2 weeks in a row where DK fumbles and the game completely goes the other way. Frustrated. No, don't trade DK, but dude, y'all got bitch slapped by a defensive back half your size all day. It's a brutal play, especially for those of us that are tremendous benefactors of DK and trying to get folks to appreciate him. It makes it hard on those of us that are, such ardent supporters. It does. I think the thing I'll say on this one is that I again want it cleaned up. I don't want him to do it. He's not giving out that extra effort on the play. He's got two hands on the ball. And so that's the thing. You come back to those guys is don't have it like a loaf of bread. So the hands are on the two ball. The hand just kind of comes in and knocks it out. It's brutal for it to happen, but you do go to him, well, all right, you did have it in your hands and you weren't doing that extra. I'm going to try to go get an extra half yard. So let me stand up for an extra 5-second thing that he'll do sometimes when the fumbles get caused. But it's tough in the moment, especially on top of everything else going the way it's going in the game, and yeah, I'm with you, man. We got to clean stuff up. That was a tough one. Brian couldn't stop the run. Lots of missed tackles, reminiscent of last year. Indeed. And George, that was your 20th super chat, by the way. That $20 dono drop. Thank you for that 20th donation to the channel. Really appreciate you. Smack agrees. He said we need to run the ball. We do need to run the ball. Yep. Zombie Central, but I definitely feel like this is an overreaction. This team has an ugly loss, but I definitely don't think this is fire everyone. We need to start over. Mike McDonald's a fraud head coach. No. That's why I want to make it where my perspective's in that same place of it. This isn't anything about an indictment on McDonald not being the right guy. It is a bit of an indictment on this. Might take a little more time than some of us had hoped to fully click into place, but that's also was to be understood possibly as an outcome of this season in the many different ways that this could play out. Haley says, I don't feel like we're lacking talent anywhere except offensive line. That said, the scheme is too complex for our defensive backs. They keep ending up in the same zone as one another. Yeah, could be on the set to your second point. Definitely could be the case of what's going down on that. I'm seeing a lot of zone at times, Haley, and that's where there's some issues on some of how I think they're running the zone versus some of the man stuff when they run that. But I think that's fair to say with the offensive line being maybe one of the only players that's missing some of the talent. George says, you look at the tape all the time, and you need to look at the tape where the guys didn't stand up. They just went down, all four knowing the guy was going to jump over their head. That part is the part that drives me crazy about that, George. Is, yeah, you see Lake and Tomlinson just kind of go like this. And you go, why did you do that? Why are you putting your head down like that? Block the guy. Why aren't you blocking the people in front of you? I saw that, George. And I didn't know what to make sense of it. And again, I've seen a couple of replays with it. I had to bounce over and do the Bleacher Report, and then I come right back here and do the discussion. And then, so it's sometimes just don't have the time to kind of, let me look at it again. Was that what I saw? You think you kind of see what you think you see on it. And you're not, entirely sure, but yeah, I saw the same thing on that. That was brutal effort on their part there at the end for a kick you absolutely need. Yeah. Ailey says, at what point do we have to ask the question of if Mike has the right personnel, though? I'm not sure what else he could want or need on defense to field the watchable product. Well, I think that in the case of, I think it's about, I would guess that there's some of this that's about onboarding and time of a scheme. I'd be surprised if he's really gotten all of the details in on these guys, and that there's an onboarding process to get to this level of complexity that's going to take some time. I think that there's a part of this that's a factor there, Haley. I think that there's guys that aren't necessarily playing their best football either, though. I'm not sure that Jerome Baker or Dodson, when they've been on the field, have been all that good. Trey Brown had one of the worst days for him that I've seen as a pro from the corner position. He was pretty bad today. Rayshawn Jenkins missed some tackles, but he's got the club on his arm he's working with now, so he couldn't wrap up on a couple of them. You could see that. But I think he's got the talent. I think it's also young. He's got to bring that along. I think also it is the last 2 weeks. It's you don't have your two best pass rushers. You have a young Derek Hall emerging. Leonard Williams, I don't think was at 100% today. Haley, if you look at his score coming out of this game from PFF, it's going to be probably in like the 50s because he's dealing with probably a broken rib. And it's hard to play the broken rib. And you have no Byron Murphy as well. So, I mean, you are still kind of almost back to the de facto with this game. I ain't leaning on it as an excuse at all, but it does come down to, well, once things get healthier and once a couple of other parts and pieces on this team are fixed up, it should be fine. But that is part of the long-term outlook, I'd say, from this game that I'm more looking at this with. Osvaldo Torres says, I'm so disappointed, man. This was supposed to be a scheduled win. Amen. Hollow says they don't have championship heart or mind. Neither was on display today, Hollow. Neither have been on display the past 2 weeks, to your point. It's something that you can feel from a team. It's something that's tangible. It's something that you don't have to wonder about whether the team's got it or not. And it's something that is wildly absent on both accounts right now. Wildly absent on both accounts. Please do hit that like button today if you can for me, folks. I would really appreciate it. DVD Forever B. It looked like they played basics for Jones' success and stayed disciplined on both sides of the ball. We got cute and couldn't stop the basics. Looked like high school freshmen on D. Yeah. I think you kind of, from a schematic structure of things today, DVD, you made it easy on them. 4-man fronts, dropping everybody into deep zone. You're giving Daniel check down his check downs. You're giving the center in the middle of the field and where he wants to hit throws down in the center there. And then he made a couple of other throws over the top later into the game, but you let him get in the rhythm. You let him feel good. Rather than kind of taking it to him, you didn't. He says, Seahawks fans are delusional. This is a new team under a new coach, so growing pains are to be expected. Seahawks weren't a good team before Big Mac, so we need to relax. We do need to relax. Patience is to be applied. And definitely what I'm leaning with as far as my front foot tonight, that's for sure. Power says, but hey, shout out to Pumpkin. Somehow she knew the day would come all along. Those magical feline powers. Indeed, Pumpkin predicted it right. That part is true. Can't undersell that one. Christian says that bomb to Tyler. He was not the guy anymore. 2 timeouts left. Plenty of other options. Yeah. Definitely is a weird play call there. Yeah, I don't think we got anybody talking about firing or that definitely is not. I don't see a lot of that in the chat. I'm seeing you guys probably reference somebody in the chat speaking to it, but I'd say that's definitely not the place to be in right now coming out of this game for sure. Jason Brendan says, anyone arguing about the refs has no shame. I don't care about the block kick, Tomlinson getting pulled down, or the DPI on Lockett. We played like yes, we deserve to lose that game. I think that's well said. That's why I won't be concentrating too much on the block kick. I can understand if it's frustrating for some, and I'm not taking anything out of that argument or that sale of it. But as you do pivot forward, I don't think our protection unit is going to be a problem going forward, and I don't think those kind of missed calls would come through if it's him pulled down by and large. So it's something that, wouldn't be something I would think to continue. This other stuff might continue and be a part, and that's why it kind of has a little bit of the forefront of me. Nate says our team does have the pieces to bounce back. That's for sure. Hopefully you get Boye Mafe back this week. Lord knows you need him. June 32nd, it says, I have to work with a Giants fan tomorrow, and the game was horrendous. It's going to be a brutal day tomorrow. It's Monday, and all the much longer because of that. I feel for you there. Zombie Central, everyone, forget this was a young team, young coach, new scheme. We must be patient. We have to be, or Mike might not last long in Seattle. Very true. You will find the patience here from me. I promise you that. Doesn't change it from being an embarrassing loss. And that's where you want them to be learning the right lessons off of the back of this. But I think that it's not a, bail out kind of thing. It's just let's also not understate it as well. It's just another loss. Flush it. I also think there's got to be a bit of a fight against that. Because at the end of the day, this has been a multi-year problem. At the end of the day, it's about fixing the problem. And you don't fix it if you overlook it. That's part of the previous administration's problem, is glossing over what was remaining an issue. And I don't think that McDonald's going to do that. I think they're going to deal with this, but it might take a little bit of time. Henry Diesel, thank you for the $10 donation. Very kind of you. You guys are amazing as always on this. Just unbelievable support to this channel. I really do appreciate it. I'm happy we've lost twice. Hungry dogs run faster. Bring on the 49ers. I hope you're right, Henry. I hope that's like they've been starved for a day and a half, and the Niners are going to come through, and it's like you're going to open the Niners up for the dog pen, and you're going to let that little chicken walk in there, and just feathers flying everywhere. Feathers and beaks. But I hope you're right, Henry. Thank you for the $10 donation, and bring on the Niners, man. Here it comes. Good news is at least they lost today, so when I go behind enemy lines with Jesse this week, we're both going to be in a state of disconfidence. Like, I'm not feeling good. He's going to be like, I don't feel good. No, I don't feel good. He's going to be like, well, I don't feel good either. Well, I don't feel good more. No, I don't feel good more. Well, you got more wins. Well, that's true, but that'll be behind enemy show this upcoming week. It's a feel bad off. But thank you for the $10 donation. I love how you said that. Hungry dogs run faster. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They got to go get that supper. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation as well. I appreciate all of your support to the channel, brother. All the earlier dono drops too. Randall, Very optimistic, says we're going to be good. We played like crap, and still we're a dropped JSN pass from having a good short for the W and a crazy play from overtime. It's very true. You still had everything well within your hands in this game, despite everything being seemingly so far outside of your grasp. No doubt about that, as you had a chance in this game still with as bad as it was. Part of the resiliency of fight that does exist in this team, that it ain't going to give up and just roll over and show its belly. They're going to fight it out with you to the end. They've shown that, especially offensively, and what we can do in 2-minute drives and those kind of things. But yeah, different tale if JSN is able to make that catch to a degree on the outlook of the day, probably, because I think you're right, Randall, in that you probably go down and score at that point if JSN does make that third down reception. Thank you for the $5 donation. Christian, thank you for the $2 donation. What's your take on Harbaugh? Not impressed with special teams play. I haven't seen him add much to anything. Yeah, I mean, I think not impressed is a good way of putting it. The block at the end there is one where you want them ready for all possibilities. I don't. That guy's got to stay in front of that guy there. He can't get over the top of him. You just have to stand in front of that guy. And to get jumped over like that on that kind of play like that, like, yeah, it's legal or not. It's just, come on, guys. There hasn't been a lot of return yardage necessarily. There's been a couple of plays that have been broken up the field, I think, at times. But again, to your point, I haven't been super impressed with him on that side of it and what he's brought to the table. There's not a lot, I'm seeing that's good to that side. Thank you for the donation. We're going to go Randall with another $5. Thank you, Randall. Appreciate you too. Mac and Grubb still figuring this stuff out. Boys flat off a short week. Probably looked ahead and didn't plan right for the Giants. Agreed. Need to run the ball. Got to run the ball. Got to provide some balance here. Got to help this defense out. There's places your offense can help this defense right now. And as much as I will bang on this defense, and rightfully so, this offense has not made it helpful and easy always for this defense this year. Too many turnovers. Too many short fields, too much inconsistency and not getting the drives going where you're actually churning some of the clock and allowing that defense to get some time to not only get a chance to catch their breath, but try to get a strategy employed to adjust to what's going on against them, what's being taken advantage of against them. And way too much passing to begin things out here, I think, a little bit. You can stand as a quick, easy adjustment here is, let's not get into a 7-to-1 pass to run rate in every single first half. That's something that over the last 2 weeks, the Niners are going to plan for this next upcoming week. And a place where Grubb can adjust. And that's where there is adjustments to be made to me on this. It's more stacked boxes, more willingness to drive pressure fronts, more willingness to run man coverage. Offensively, yes, more of a willingness to run the ball, more of a willingness to lean into bubble screens and fly sweeps, more of a willingness to run misdirection. A lot of our offenses snap and we're going here. Snap and we're going here. How about some more of snap and, this is going this way, but this is coming back that way. This player is going motion this way, but the ball's coming back this way. Not a lot of that within the attack as it stands right now as well. But you're right about that being the figuring out part too, Randall. This is a new coaching staff. It's going to take time. And where I am is, is kind of a bottom line to me on coming out of this game, Randall, for me is I am dissuaded. I can't just go, well, you flush it as this one thing. Where you're one block kick away from this being a wholly different. There's a little more to it for me than that. But at the same point in time, there's absolutely adjustments here to be played. And it's just about being patient with this process to be having its chance to take root, take hold, and hopefully just continually get better as we go along through the rest of this year. Well said, Randall. Well said as always, brother. God's Gang, thank you for another $2 donation. I thought our linebackers were getting torched in this game. The linebackers were brutal. There's no two ways really about it. Dodson and Baker both played bad games. They're going to be poorly rated by PFF. They're going to be poorly rated probably, I would guess, all the way down the line, down to how they even rushed the passer when they were being sent as blitzers. It's a very disappointing game for both of them. And Dodson, who started out pretty strong for this team, is more and more kind of come back down to earth for them here over the last couple of games. And Baker, who's been banged up since day one arriving, has not been tremendously impressive over there on that side of it either. Those are guys that are on one-year deals, and they're playing right now like it's going to be a one-year deal if we continue to see this from them. They're also having issues in the tackling department too, by the way. I'm seeing a lot of missed tackles slip outside their grip. But when you do talk about two players that I ain't feeling some of that intensity from snap in and snap out, I could start with the two inside linebackers on this team today. Step slow, step behind, taking every block right to the chin, not pursuing with a sense of intensity. McDonald's going to see this on the tape. He will. They're the best options we have. We don't have any other way to go with it, but it's worth noting. Jordan, thank you for another $5 donation. Jordan, appreciate all the donations and support. Another member of the channel too as well. Thank you for that. As bad as this was, good teams haven't looked good this year. I think what happens on Thursday will let us know what kind of coach we have. One of the things I'm going to be doing this week is, to your point on that, Jordan, taking a little bit of a studied look on, again, what Mike McDonald did against the Niners last year with the Ravens and how he shut that team down. And what I want to really be looking for is to see how he potentially changes that to this year, or if he does try to apply much of the same model to Brock Purdy in this next game. And if not, why? And if so, okay, maybe we're seeing a bit of a change in the learning of the ways, maybe a little bit here. So I think you're right about understanding a little bit more about coach now. Your defense has gotten smacked in each ball on their sack this last couple weeks. They went for the smaller lines at the smaller one on the right, and now they came back and they hit the big one on the left. Overhand left on the big one on the left. So now what are you going to do? You're on the ground and you're like, got you right in the sack. Walk it off, get up. How do you answer now? And when we talk about pivoting this forward to the Niners this next week and what you do against this Niner team and what are obvious adjustments that can be dialed up right now, I've got a couple of things here right out the gate to that, Jordan. Offensively, we're talking about it. I don't think that this is any genius thing. Run the ball, get downhill, attack the Niners where they might be a little weaker on that interior of that defensive line, up the gut, especially. They're going to run that wide nine. They're going to spread those defensive ends out, those defensive tackles out, get downhill on them in the run game. But defensively speaking, stack boxes. Stack boxes and be willing to flirt a little bit with the potentiality of giving up a big play over the top. Because you played the Niners for the last 3 years over and over, time and again, and you've protected against the big play over the top, and you've still given up the big play. We've tried a model of a way of going at this team in prior years that hasn't worked, and it's been the same way. It's been the same note. It's you on the piano with all of these keys across the piano. All these keys you can push. All these different iterations of how you could play a game and how the notes you play defensively. And you went like this. Ding, ding, ding. That's your defensive approach. 4-man fronts, no blitzing, no changes of coverages, soft zone on the backside, bad tackling, very few turnovers. That's the model you've applied to the Niners in prior games. So now this is a game to me where you go, okay, how about some stack boxes? How about we just make the onus of this taking the running game away from Brock and it just being fully about his arm throughout the course of this game? And maybe they hit you on a couple deep shots, and maybe you get the top taken off your defense on a few of these plays. But maybe you also cause a few game-changing turnovers. And maybe you also don't allow then for your defense to be living on a football field. And we have got a coach in Shanahan that'll absolutely go there and take that 4 yards in a cloud of dust all day in the run game and will not overthink it. So I think that there's some obvious spots here where he can make some quick and right there for him to see on this adjustments-wise with this defense, because tactically, the past 2 weeks here with the Lions and this game plan, they have been very similar. They are almost like just about mirror images in the way that you went about your approach in these past 2 games. And it's not exactly anywhere close to the same of what he was running with the Ravens last year. Don't know the reason for that, but that's what it has been to my eyes here so far. But plenty of room for improvement. It's not a final product yet. And you're right, Jordan. There's few teams that have looked truly fully elite so far this year as we've started out the season. It is as much of it as ever a league of parity. Tim Schumi, thank you for the $5 donation. Number of people calling for coaching changes is crazy. If we started 1-3, I think people would be more patient. Inflated expectations. Bad game, though. Agree with you there, Tim. And I guess that's probably something that's been talked about maybe online or a little bit in my chat. I haven't seen too many mentioned in my chat so far, but I'm not obviously getting to all the messages here as of yet. We got so many donos. But you don't win in the NFL spinning through coaches. It doesn't work well to do that, and that's not the name of the game if you want long-term success in this league, or even frankly short-term success. Things are going to take some time, and you're right about it, Tim. You can't. I think maybe some of the 3-0 start inflated some expectations, and they did with myself included on that. But that's where then when this kind of game comes up to check those expectations, you don't pivot to freak out mode to saying, all these coaches are out of here. Grubb is as a college coach, bump. Instead, you got to come back to, in my opinion, the pivot is back to remain patient, understand that then just means it's going to take a little bit of that time we thought it might take on the surface of this to onboard this thing fully. Let's not forget with McDonald in Baltimore, it took him 10 games to get the defense on point. And it was only even after he added really Roquan Smith as the final factor, as the addition there and moving Patrick Queen to the will linebacker role, that he was able to get that defense to really fully cinch in at that point and lock into place. So will it take longer with Seattle? Is it understandable if it took longer with Seattle? Yeah, it would. And the coaching change thing is not going to be the right manner and approach here. It does not breed success spinning through coaches. And if you're going to go to complicated systems on an offense or defensive side of the ball, then you've got to allot that much more time for those coaches to get those systems in place. Otherwise, you're being impatient, and it's never really going to work because you're never going to give it enough time to set and grow and take root. But well said all the way around, Tim. And thank you for that $5 donation. Radu Turkan, thank you for the $2 donation. If someone told me this was Carroll, I'd believe it. Yeah, if I didn't know Mike McDonald was on the sideline and you said, here's a game, here's another Coach Carroll game, I would have said this fall right along with the kind of Coach Carroll defenses I've seen for many years. It was a carbon copy. It was a carbon copy where there was only like a single mole on the back of the neck. That was the only differentiation between the two parts. It was kind of wild to watch. And I don't really understand it because it wasn't part and parcel with what McDonald did with the Ravens last year. And I have some suspicions about it a little bit, but I also just don't get it. It's not a winning strategy to me. It doesn't end up really bringing you any kind of benefit. So why continue to do it? Why lean into that as a valid strategy of approach? Why are you scared in this game about Daniel Jones taking the top of your defense off? In what universe would any of us believe that that'd be a true concern coming into this game? But if I'm to read into your soft zone coverages on the back end, that indeed seemed to be a bit of what they were worried about. Thank you, Radu. And well said. I saw the same thing. More Seahawks has been celebrating as a Hawks Nest member for 8 months, almost a year. Thank you for that, Phoebe. I swear if Grubb passes as much as he did in this game against the Niners, the run defense against the Niners, run defense, I won't be very happy. Feed K9. Yeah, you can't go out this pass happy against a Niner defense that can rush the passer better than this Giants team even can, and will absolutely eat you alive if you're going to become one-dimensional like that. And when you're doing that from an offensive perspective case, you're really giving the defense what they want. They want one-dimensional. They want you just to throw the ball over and over again. And it's made all the worse when, again, you come back to you don't have the pass protectors in place to make that kind of offense work, Grubb. You've made a tactical decision for most part early on this year to have Laken Tomlinson as your left guard and Bradford as your right guard. You've made a tactical decision to have better run blockers in there than pass blockers at those two positions. So then you got to lean back in on that with more of an onus upon running the ball. Otherwise, bring in the pass protectors. Bring in Christian Haynes as the right guard because he's a better pass protector than he's a run blocker. He's not going to open the holes of a Bradford. He's not going to be as good with it as Bradford is on that, but he'll be better in pass protection. So, lean to what your personnel does well. lean away from what they don't do well. And yes, this is I think the plays that stands at the forefront coming in this Niner attack game. What you can look at as a way to go after them, a way to press them and test them and control the clock at home. Help protect your defense who needs some protecting. Get them a Secret Service detail if we can here. And run the ball, Femi. Run the ball. Marty McFinehouse. Marty, I want to thank you very much again, man, for the other night. Marty dropped a cajillion gifted memberships here on the channel the other night. Thank you again for that, Marty, and the $12 donation tonight. I very much appreciate that. We got to beat the 49ers and simply have to want it more than they do. Well said. You're not going to be able to walk into this with any other spirit than we got to be fighting tooth and nail to go get this game. We've got to have a sense of urgency in this game where this is not merely a game right around getting into just the beginnings of the middle of the year. And you know, it's a long season. We got plenty of time. Urgency, that which was missing completely from this game for the most part, till maybe down to the wire, at least, you know, defensively. Offensively, there's a little bit more there. But you're not going to get by on this unless you're going to be ruthless a little bit in this game, unless you're going to have a little bit of that sense of spirit of your back's up against it. You've been embarrassed 2 weeks over. This is a pride gut check kind of situation now. Where do you want to stand as a team? What do you want to do this year? Do you want to make some noise, or you don't want to go a little quietly in that good night? And it's big if you can beat them. It is big for the season if you can get the win there against that Niner when you look at where the rest of the division's at and where their records are at right now. That would be no small win to go get it. Not that the season's over if you can do that, but it would be big to come back this week and go get that W, Marty, to your point. But you got to want it. The feeling's got to be there. There's got to be no, if we win that game, it ain't going to be like, well, our effort and energy wasn't there, but we got a couple balls to bounce our way. It won't play like that. It won't play close like that. You're going to need the energy and the balls bouncing your way in this one. Tay, thank you for subscribing, Tay. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. Appreciate you subscribing. Folks, do please, if you could, hit that like button, sub on up if you get a chance as well. I really do appreciate it. But welcome aboard, Tay. Long live the King. Thank you for the $5 donation. Long live the King. Last 2 weeks, felt like I was watching Scooby-Doo. And at the end, they had McDonald tied up and snatched the mask off, and it was Coach Pete. Maybe they got them. Yeah, they got those new masks now, you know. They got those rubberized masks that are, it's like Mission Impossible style, where it's indistinguishable from the real person. Maybe that's what's going on here. Have we watched how Mike walks on the sidelines? I noticed every shot of Mike on the sideline is technically him standing still. We would know that gait of Pete if he starts walking. Have we looked at the shoes of Mike McDonald over the past couple of weeks? Is he rocking those big old Monarchs? Have somebody given Monarchs to Mike? Has Mike been body snatched? This is a legit question. We have not, no one's asked this at this point. Has he been body snatched? Someone go check on McDonald. I think Pete worked some weird magic on him, man. I think you might be right, King. But it's been wild to watch the past 2 weeks. It's been so depressing and wild to watch. Your defense get disassembled in the same manner by which they have been disassembled for going on about 7 straight years. It blows my mind. And it's not me jumping in conclusions or this, that. It just throw away any sort of, well, this projects to that. That's just watching the past 2 games that play out like this. You take these 2 quarterbacks and you go, you don't want to make the game easy on them. You want to get them uncomfortable in the pocket. You want to take away the run game. Nope. And I'm talking about by the approach you were applying from a game plan structure of things. Thank you, King. Appreciate all your support today on the channel, and I felt the same way. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation, Randall, and all of your support. New York Giants first drive, 3rd and 17. They hit a screen, then a few plays later, another one. We got the fumble return, but then another long drive. Offense, sat, and wait. That's where you always want to make sure when you're looking at these games and making determinations about the games, it's putting the blame in the right place. And you can find things with the offense that is certainly, I think, very, very big points within this game that are valid points to draw upon to say that and that and that. You guys, that stuff you should clean up. That stuff that's in your control. I mean, Geno going for the slide on third down where you need a conversion. Fall forward, Geno. Go get the first. The drops that happen, the fumble that occurs. These are all things offensively, yes, that could be picked upon, but it goes down to the defense. It does, Randall. And you go get that touchdown after you get that fumble, and then, yeah, you in that first half allowed that Giants team to control that ball and control that clock, and it did keep your offense off the field. And it's hard for an offense to find its footing and its rhythm. Say nothing of being able to get back to the running game. From an offensive coordinator's perspective, you're like, man, we're not going to get the ball back for 8 minutes. How can I run the ball? I got to get this thing pushed up the field. We got to go make some points happen. And it starts to kind of inform, I think, some of the play calling too, when the offense starts to get so few opportunities. But again, as we go on this, Randall, it's a bit of this return back to prior games that we had watched in recent years, where the defense gets nothing done. The offense basically is going to have to play perfect. The defense is going to live on the football field for a large part of the game. The offense will be by and large efficient, and you'll fall short. And it played out that way again today. And it has gotten frustrating to lose in that kind of same manner. We're not losing in different methods or different ways, but you're coming back when you're losing and you're kind of pointing to the same reasons. God's Gang, thank you for the $5 donation. I saw Dodson just stand there for a while and watch the reception up the middle. It was very disturbing. Stick his hand out. It's a broken pass. Yeah, Dodson really impressed me early on, and he's had some splash plays here. But if you're looking at him down in and down out at how he's played the inside linebacker role, I thought he would be better in coverage than he's been. He's not been as good in run support. He's certainly making you ask a little bit at this point right now. Wait, Bobby wasn't better? Bobby wasn't better than either of these two options? And I'm not even saying Bobby's good at this point. He's certainly going to have his problems in coverage, but both of these guys are too. On top of not necessarily being good against the run. But yeah, I saw the same thing. When I talk about lackadaisical effort, one of my guys right there at the front would be Dodson coming out of this game. You weren't feeling that from him. And sounds like I'm not the only one on that one. Guy's playing for a contract. You want to put a good tape out there like you're flying around giving everything. I don't know if that's what we saw. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation, Randall. On DK, rather have a player you got to pull back than push forward. He fixed the fumble issue for a few years. My guess is just a mental lapse. Yeah, I'm not going to have much of a problem on that. I mean, really, the play I'd have as much an issue in this game as DK having the drop early on in this game where, there's sometimes one of those when he gets into sort of 10 to 13 targets a game, we're going to get one drop a game in there. And I'd like to see some of that cleaned up with him. The fumble one, I have an issue when it's the prior week and he's fighting for an extra yard that he doesn't need to fight for, and he can get down and protect the ball. To your point this week, Randall, he's got two hands on the ball. And that's, at the end of the day, if the guy's got two hands on the ball and he's not doing some extra fight for the yardage, he caught the ball and just went forward, did the fall forward thing that receivers do. You catch it and you run it through for the 3 yards and you get tackled down. He's not doing anything extra on that play then. He's got two hands on it. It's sometimes defenders make great plays. And I don't know if there's something he could have fixed on that one beyond what he did. But it's been tough. It's been tough with DK this year. There's more of those moments there too, where there's plenty for the people there, the anti-DK folks that, But to your bottom line, that's my point on too, is he's a game changer. He's a great player. And much rather have to pull him back than push him forward. No penalties today from DK on that side. But, yeah, that was a tough play. Cameron, celebrating 25 months over 2 years as a Hawks Nest member. Thank you for that, Cameron. Schneider has done a bad job of building an offensive line. Yearly problem. Yearly issue here in Seattle. There's no doubt about that. And one that I asked for to be at the centerpiece of last offseason, Cameron. I said that I would make building this offensive line at the forefront of my priority list from what I want to add to this team. How I make that happen, draft, sign, trade. Schneider can be the decider of that. I want to make it ultimately a big main point of emphasis. The team signed Lincoln Tomlinson. The team signed George Fant. The team drafted Haynes in the 3rd round. and a couple guys in the later rounds as back end guys. But that's not an approach of making it at the forefront of your strategy. And again, these chickens come home to roost, and you can see it coming a little bit. And he's got some trepidation, which I do agree with to a degree, about paying offensive linemen and the struggle of that. But I think that John hasn't necessarily put every iron in the fire to finding a trade when it comes to this offensive line as well. That it's all just got to be through the draft and development, and that you don't draft enough high enough for that to be the way you go about it. It's one thing if you want to draft like the Cowboys draft, where every other year they're drafting an offensive lineman in the first round, and sometimes they're drafting an offensive lineman in the first and the second, which is I think what they did this year with Guyton and BB. It's one thing if you're going to do that. It's another thing when we're talking about, okay, Cross, first round pick, but Lucas doesn't play even though you got him in the third round, and then you go beyond that, and it's just, okay, a third rounder here, a fourth rounder here, a fifth rounder here. That's not as much making it that point of emphasis on it. And so if you're going to pick the lane of just making it only about the draft is the way you add the offensive lineman, and you don't want to spend the money on them in free agency, then you've got to spend more of your draft capital to the offensive lineman. We look at what's the lesson to be learned. How do you pivot this forward? How do you fix things that have been problematic? This is where John can, I think, take those steps to start to do that. Whereas they just kind of been hard-headed in their approach of going, well, we'll just get it through the offensive line. We'll make it a numbers game on the offensive line. And a Satoa Lamea or a Jarrell or a Bradford will eventually develop into that spot. And it's not happened. You're just going to have to pay the prime assets to get the prime play from the position. Foster McTeague, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Foster McTeague. I appreciate you for that, Foster. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. Anyone who wants to fire a coach after a 3-2 start should root for the Carolina Panthers. Bad franchises fire coaches. Look around the league. Good teams lose bad games. They do. That part is as much, I think, as much an important part as anything else right there on that side of it, Randall, in what you say there. Yeah, I think there's a draw in modern fandom that is one I find myself pushing back against quite a bit, Randall, which is, the reactionary view to losses, the reactionary to this, where everything, there's a rush to get to almost a rush to be the first to call something out, to be right about it. And that there's more of a willingness to rush to be the first to be right about it and not worry about being wrong you get the credit for being right. Even though you might be wrong 10 times over, you got to be right about this one thing, and it makes it worthwhile to always press for the conclusion as quick as you can get to it. And that's a big push I see in modern fandom from fans looking to want to be right on stuff. And I think that the place that we've got to be into on this, more to your point on this, is more of in the patient standpoint of it. And especially that this has not been a bad start for McDonald. He is 3-2 to start his coaching career as the youngest NFL head coach with one of the youngest rosters in football. There are excuses and there are explanations. And if you're going to tell me it's an excuse that a first-time head coach in his first 5 games is figuring out some of the road, if an offensive scheme that's going from some of the most simplified to the most complicated, if a defensive scheme going from the most simplified to the most complicated, if you have one of the top 4 youngest rosters in the NFL, and we throw that all into the salad, and you come out the other side of that, the expectation level should have been that he is at 4-1, that he is undefeated at this point in time in the year. To Randall's point on this, that is completely out of whack with the bounds of reality. Be upset at the loss. And you look at me today, I'm as frustrated as anybody else. I could barely freaking talk during the live stream show broadcast. I'm supposed to be doing play-by-play, and I can't even speak. I'm so mad. I'm as angry as any person in this chat, I wholly guarantee you. But the way to pivot off that, the solution to that, is not through fire this, get this guy out, get this guy in. It's more of, okay, got to remember the patient part of things. We got to remember there's going to be some long days. And I spoke to this in the offseason over and over again. There's going to be those times here where we're going to have to kind of engage that level of patience and understand this isn't going to happen overnight. Rome wasn't built overnight. Building a championship team isn't done overnight. There are things to be cleaned up and fixed, and there are a lot of them. But I agree, if you're hearing from fans that are going fire, if you're feeling a pull that fire is the word to come out of your mouth on this. I'm sorry, but you're looking at it with the wrong view on this. It's not the way to look. We may come to find that McDonald's not a great coach. We may come to find Grubb's not a great coach, but this is not at that point to make the assessment, or what we've seen through 5 games is not that a valid determination from that on this. Should be going the opposite direction, if anything, on a bottom line of the result we've gotten. But patience is, to me, the big thing coming off this. I understand we're jumpy for the contender. I understand it's been a while since we've won, and I'm right there with you guys on that part of it. But there's explanations and excuses, and the explanations here fit more than excuses do. And the explanations are ones where I can understand why this will take a little bit more time, and why the necessity here is to be patient and not tapping our toe, and certainly not looking for a hook. Well said, though, Randall. Christian, thank you for the $2 donation. Did Mike not trust his D going forward on 4th down? I'm trying to think of when necessarily in the game you're talking about on the 4th down. I guess there was an earlier point in the D in the game that you might be speaking to. Yeah, I think you're speaking about you're speaking about the earlier one, I think. Yeah, I think he was playing that as you do as a coach at that point, that I don't know if we can stop him. And if you're a McDonald's standpoint, if you have to, as a coach, when you're making the determination about going for it or not, large part of that decision is driven by not what's happened in prior games, not what's a trend around the league. What's in your mind is what's going on in this game. What's been the ebb and flow? How has this game gotten to the results it's gotten to up until this point? And the results up until that point defensively was that you weren't getting any stops. They were able to run. They were able to pass on you. You weren't getting any pressure. You weren't coming close to really causing any turnovers. From Mike's standpoint at that point, I think he had to kind of understand that, all right, this is a game where we're going to have to really try to just push the pedal down offensively to make this happen if this is going to happen. I think that he's taking the right temperature of the room in that moment, making that choice. Thank you, though, Christian. Randall, thank you for another $5 donation. I appreciate you, Randall, for that. Got to imagine the fact that we didn't really have the ball in the first quarter played into the play calling, even though the game was tied. Felt like we're behind. Yeah, I think a bit. I think certainly to your point on this, Randall, the defense living on the football field and allowing so much of the time possession starts to, I think, eat into a little bit of Grubb's understanding, where he's looking at the clock winding down. He's going, man, I only have so much of this game to work with. And then you do get kind of into the, late third quarter and you're down by 10. So then it's basically going to be all pass city at that point. But I think that did factor into it. Yeah. The fact that you were kind of getting less of that time out there on that field. And that's where we do get back to why I like to sometimes embrace the pressure fronts and the stack boxes and the willingness to try to overload things at times. Because if you're just trying to do it traditionally and you're getting, bled out anyway going down that road, you're just getting bled out in 15 minutes rather than a 3 or 4 minute drive. Well, so be it. At least your defense still remains fresh, and at least you can maybe then dial up some pressure stuff to also offset some of that stuff. But when you're allowing the slow bleed to happen, there is no offset. There is no, we had that other game-changing sack, and then we had the strip fumble over here, or we had the pressure coming. We were able to get the interception earlier in this game because we were doing that, so we might have had the play over the top, but we also got that on the other side of it. You're getting none of that with the slow bleed stuff, with the we're just going to stand back in deep zone coverage and 4-man front stuff. And so again, part of the reason I don't like that soft coverage, soft defense, bend but don't break, is because you just end up causing a little bit of that stuff that flows down from that, right, Randall? Like you say, where it's like, well, this starts to inform the play caller, which has nothing to do really with the defense, but it starts to all end up like a domino effect spilling downwards. And that's where you got to get up ahead of all that at the front and go, okay, well, let's make some more tactical decisions on this day that maybe we're going to try to manufacture some stuff, more simulated pressures and whatnot. But the team didn't do a lot of that today. Nate Smeltzer, the sun is still shining on top of the NFC West, guys. The Niners lost, and we get another game to watch very shortly. I'm happy it isn't summer anymore and waiting months for any Seahawks at all. Well, that's true. At least we do got some Seahawks football, and this will be a quick turnaround, which hopefully is a welcome thing this week for us on that side of it. Sam Krellin, at least this happened earlier in the season, but yes, I definitely lost heaps of confidence as of now. We're lucky the Niners are not in form. How do you think we'll look against them on Thursday? Like you say, they're not necessarily in prime form as of yet, but I don't know if McDonald either has the comfort yet to let his scheme be run fully to be able to implement the same game plan that he implemented last year that had Brock Purdy tied up at knots, that had the Niners pulling Brock Purdy off the field at one point through that game. And I just don't see enough of that iteration of that Raven defense being brought to bear here to believe that you're going to bring it forward in this game against the Niners. There certainly is every bit the opportunity here for you to take advantage of a weakened Niner team versus where they've been in prior years. But that's the thing that sits at the forefront for me, because it starts with the Niners on, we got to beat the Niners. Well, we got to take care of that offense first. Yeah, the defense is another monster in itself that you have to handle, but how are you going to stop that offense? And if I know that I have a defense that committed to running 4-man fronts and dropping everybody back in zone defense, I've learned pretty much concretely at this point that Kyle Shanahan understands very well how to attack that particular defense. And so if that's what I'm seeing on paper here with looking going into it, I don't feel really great in my confidence on that one. We're going to basically have to outscore them is how I would look at this on the outside looking in. And that gets me nervous, quite frankly. Big Dizzy, what a disappointment today. Jenkins tackling, terrible angles when not tackling, not physical tackles on the quarterback runs, not winning at the line of scrimmage, not a good offensive game plan, slow developing plays. I'd agree with all that, man. Iona says this was embarrassing to watch. Iona. I agree, Iona. Very embarrassing. Virus tackling was awful. Physicality was not on display. How can they turn this around? Supposedly it's been a point of emphasis every day, the tackling stuff. So explanation and reasoning for it, I'm not too sure. But your eyes are not lying to you. You know, you're not missing it wrong. That's what I'm seeing as well. And how do you turn that around has me kind of scratching my head with a little bit of everybody else on this one. I'm not too sure. I think that you can bring more bodies around, stack boxes. You know, you can congest things more down around the line of scrimmage. You can run more press coverage. You can run more man-based coverage concepts on the back end. Those are just little things they can do. But eventually the tackling has also got to be an effort thing. And when I see some of these tackles being lost, a lot of it I can kind of feel like maybe I'm wrong on it, but it feels like you can kind of draw back to effort being a big part of what's at the center of why you're watching a guy miss a tackle on a play. Maybe he hasn't challenged one play. It concerns me. It's true. Mike hasn't challenged play. I don't know if I can think of one that I thought he should have challenged necessarily, like two-point conversion last. Maybe he had one that he didn't, but I thought he could have. Yellen says the highlight was JSN running off 2 defensive backs, acting like the ball was in the air while Geno was running behind them. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I saw him do that. Smart play by JSN there. Scorpio Francis, I believe he was hired to beat San Francisco. That would imply this team is ready to win now. If they don't make the playoffs, it will be a failure. I think that's kind of a harsh outlook on it myself here, Scorpio. Yes, you're definitely hired to beat the San Francisco Niners. You're a team that didn't play the Niners. You're the team that didn't make the playoffs last year. The Niners were a couple of plays away from winning a Super Bowl. Those are 2 teams at 2 different places. And while this team is very talented, Francis, it's probably like the 3rd youngest team in the NFL. You have a first-time head coach. I think this is where we've got to have our perspective on this in the right place. I don't think Jody Allen said, I'm bringing Mike McDonald in and he better beat the Niners this year first thing or he's a failure. I mean, that's kind of what you're inferring a little bit in the comment on that. And I'm not sure that that's really an accurate portrayal of what probably Jody Allen or the team thought in this. It's going to take a bit of time on this, you know? SL Hazard, we should have played to win instead of going for field goal, like 3 pass plays in a row. Kayvon Thibodeau out 2. Come on. I definitely wouldn't have gone with the 3 pass plays in a row. I don't know if I mind the field goal attempt as much, but I certainly would have probably mixed a run in there. You had plenty of time on the clock at that point to still run with where you were on the field. Greg Kemp, Brandon, Hawks 3 best outside linebackers hurt. Woolen hurt, and D-line still dealing with injuries. Plus, the starting safety is playing with the club on his hand. Shaking my head. It's a beat-up crew, man. It's a beat-up crew on top of everything else, that's for sure. Don't know how we get to the right side of that by Thursday, though, either. Brian says, I'm starting to sense another free agent bust, to be honest. Uchenna has played exactly one half of football since this time last year, and now he's injured again. Without him, I don't see any accountability. Definitely going to be hard to win this game if there's no Uchenna, and Boyd is barely limping around on his leg out there, and Leonard's trying to get it out. Big Country, this is one of the worst losses of the Schneider era. It's every bit as bad as any of the worst losses of the Carroll era in recent history. And that is, to your point, Big Country, that's saying something, right? Yeah, I can't, to Ricardo, to your point, I can't really blame Uchenna with this injury thing. The last year, torn pec this year, it was a dirty play that got him injured before. You know, it's hard to give a guy a hard time like that where he gets injured on a play that was outlawed because it injured players. That's one of those ones where you go, that's just kind of bad luck to Uchenna. It is going to affect a little bit of the outlook on Uchenna this offseason and deciding what you do or don't do with him after that point. Jan says the most frustrating element is the complacence of the defensive players to be blocked at the point of contact. Baker, Dotson, and Woolen. Yeah. Watch those guys being blocked, to your point, Yellen, and then go over and take a look at Devin Witherspoon. And you see a very, very different amount of fight and energy to get off the block than those guys. Something very unimpressive about Baker and Dotson is their inability to slip blocks at all. Joey Berardi, I know we have pretty much a whole new staff, but this feels exactly like how the last few years of the Carroll era was. I'm in the same place, Joey. I think many people are in the chat, and I don't think your eyes are lying. I don't think your eyes are lying. Lethal Lance says, I'm not interested in extending DK. He's out on DK. Good morning, football. Yep. A good linebacker in the first round, a good offensive guard in the second in this draft. Very possible. Very possible. Aiden says, this felt like such a Seahawks game. Play like crap for 55 minutes and then play like a Super Bowl team for the last 5 minutes. Amen. Y'all in the crossers killing man coverage. Zones leave wide open gaps. I get why so much pressure was being brought early. Yep. They're getting work. With TheSeahawksNest, do you think DK is worth a top 5 wide receiver every payday extension? I'm personally not on the side of things anymore. So it's always a very heavy loaded question, Lethal Lance. You know, there's those topics that are the hot button topics that you touch upon in the fan base that are just, you know, always going to seem to derive a very passionate opinion. And what I find with DK, much like Geno or prior to that, the Carroll or the Russell discussions, is that people that are where they're at are very well embedded in where they're at for the most part. You know, what they think and what they believe is where they are. And there sometimes doesn't seem to be either side able to really bring one side over to the other on that. When it comes to DK, man, I've been as vocal as I possibly can be vocal about my support of DK and where I think he is as a player and how I think he is as part of the future. And that, yes, I would sign him to a contract extension after this year, that he is part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I understand that he drives people crazy with the things that go wrong in his game and that they want those things cleaned up and it makes them unhappy. And it's enough to make them unhappy that they don't want to sign him to an extension. So I would say to you, Lethal Lance, is you're not alone. There are other people that are in that place of things. But it's in the same standpoint of in a conversation a little bit to me like the Geno thing where I say, this is a guy that's part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm keeping guys that are part of the solution. I'm going to go ahead and move away from the guys that are part of the problem. When you lose this game today, did you lose this game, Lethal Lance, because of DK Metcalf? Is he in the top 5 things of the reason they lost you this game? Not in my opinion. Are there things that drive me crazy about the drop and the fumble? Yeah. But even the fumble in this game, Lethal Lance, we won him last week to clean up his play from last game. Hey, you're doing too much on that play. Don't go for that extra yard. Just get down. He's not going for the extra yard. He's not holding the ball like a loaf of bread. It's a great play by the defender. Defenses get paid. Sometimes they make a great play. You don't like to see it. It's brutal. Don't get me wrong. And I would love to see that stuff cleaned up. But at the end of the day, essentially, Lethal Lance, we're talking about a guy having a Megatron start to his career. And we're talking about wanting to move off of that. And when you talk about the surface of that for a guy that we know run blocks like a demon and gives you all that he can give you every week, I come back to that and I say, I'll keep that guy. I'll ride with that guy. But I'll acknowledge as well that there's certainly the other side of this coin out there. I don't think it's as large a contingent as the folks that want to keep him, by and large. But that's just my take and my side on it. Tommy says, I think Mike actually let Pete's scheme go this Thursday against the Niners. Maybe we'll see. Mofo, this was the anti-Pete Seahawks loss. It played out like a normal Seahawks game of the past 10 years. And in the end, we typically pull it out, but then the script flipped. Odd being on the other end. Amen. Amen. Nicholas says they just replayed the blocked field goal on NFL Network. That was 100% illegal play. Giants pulled our snapper or center down. NFL most likely won't do anything about it. Yeah, another week of bad calls that, I am blaming it on it, but it sucks that that's always something every week we got to kind of talk about on top of everything else, It's like, ugh. But certainly wasn't necessarily, I think there's other parts where you lose the game for sure, but doesn't take away from that being a brutal play. Brutal non-call. Nick says, I'm here and they kept Mafe out, so he is fresh for Thursday. Can't overlook any team in the NFL. No, you can't, Nick. No guaranteed dubs in this sport. Carlos was not surprised the officiating was asked, but we shouldn't need the officials to beat the Giants without neighbors. Amen. Jason Brendan says defense is living on the field because the offense had 8 plays through a majority of the first half. He's not blameless in that. Being Geno or Grubb? Nope, offense definitely could have played better to start this game out. Three Hours says this might be worse than the Rams loss week 1. Maybe. Or at least as bad. B, we went from a volume 12 to a volume 1.2 with a side salad. Yes, we did. JS says being loud is cool, but that was pitiful, showing that wasn't cheer-worthy at all. Yeah, see, my thing with this, JS, is that the sound and the volume thing was a problem from the jump. So, the lack of loud wasn't that, well, in the fourth quarter you got quiet. It's that you weren't quiet through a large part of this game, and it was kind of obvious watching the television copy. It's also not just this game, JS. It's a problem I've been seeing for years going back now, walking in that stadium. It's something that I'm hearing from a variety of people. Just read the chat that you'll read below you on people that'll confirm this very same thing walking into the stadium. Ain't about the team at this point not doing enough to do that. It's that you have people coming to that stadium not committed to being loud. And when you've got Daniel Jones going up the line of scrimmage in the first quarter, throughout the first quarter, and going into all of these audibles and all of these checks and going to every person on the offense prior to the play call and getting that out vocally, I don't think that's on the team and how they're playing. I think that's on the 12s and how loud they're being. We're not being. Henry Jesus says, well, yell at neighbor's dog. Feel better. Robert Charles says, when are the Hawks going to fix the offensive line? I'm so sick of watching them get their butts kicked. Hopefully, eventually it will become a point of emphasis. Hopefully at some point, but we find ourselves waiting, continue to wait. Dio Brando. Fans were chanting while on offense. Had to tell people to shut up. Brutal. That's brutal. Good morning, football breakdowns. Yeah, in preseason, we saw sweeps and screens a lot. Why did they go away from it without trying it in the regular season? I don't know. You know, I thought Laviska Shenault would have a real true role here on this team as kind of that guy, but they don't seem to want to fit him into that role or try to even fit him into that role. Brian says, I don't want to live and die off of empty sets on 3rd and 4th down. Yeah. Be good if we get some less 3rd and 4th downs. DVD says, being in the press conference, Mike was asked about K9 only having 4 carries in the first half. I hope that lives in his and Grubb's head for his next 4 days. Me too. Me too. K-Jab, the blocked kick should have been a penalty. That does seem to be a bit of some of the consensus I'm hearing from the chat. And Baku, I was at the game and it looked like we weren't trying at all. That's the energy I was feeling through the television as well in Baku. I don't know. I don't know why. That's the part that's maybe the biggest head scratcher coming out of this game is how's an NFL team coming off being embarrassed on national embarrassed on national TV the prior week, you come back and put that effort out there where you don't look ready to go. Joe Z says Mike McDonald said they were outplayed and out executed. They were also outcoached. Yes, yes, and yes, Joe. Ricardo says, do we really think the run-pass ratio was the difference in the game? I don't think it was that big of a deal considering we were behind most of the game. It's not as much as something that's a major issue. And it's, again, with this game, it's just as much of, it's hard with this, Ricardo, because there's 15 things that are bad, right? Let's just get through. There's 15 things are bad. And depending on the person you ask in this game is what thing is most worst bad. There'll be a person that'll tell you DK is the worst thing in this game. There might be a person that tells you Geno's the worst thing. There'll be a play teller who says the Grubb play calling is the worst thing. There'll be a thing that tells you that you didn't run the ball enough. There'll be somebody tells you that the zone coverages, the lack of tackling. It's just a whole lot of bad and way too much bad at that. And a lot of bad that's within your control to take care of. Is the run pass ratio a bad part of this game coming out? But I think it is a little bit, Ricardo. I think you went away from the run to start things out. I think later on in that drive, even in the game, I think you got 1:20 on the clock. You've got 2 timeouts. You're throwing the ball, but you're already in field goal range. Those runs up the middle there where you got the Giants just pinning their ears back going. But there's so far with Grubb as we look at something that's just beyond this game and looking at sort of an early thing we've seen so far this season. The Denver game last week against Detroit, where he has these first halves where he decides he's just not going to run the ball at all. And that's a trend. That's a thing that he's been doing kind of normally now. And it's not working in their benefit offensively by going down that track. So I don't think it's a difference in this game, but is it a problem within this game as to why you lost it and does sit there as a spot here where Grubb's got to get a better handle on running the ball more, finding more balance. It'd be one thing if the running game was completely crap or you didn't have difference-making running backs back there who could get something done, but we kind of do. We just seem early in these games to completely ignore it. Again, though, it doesn't help. The defense is living on the field in the first half, and it all kind of goes together on that. Hall says, because there's nothing to cheer about these last several years. You had to. We've not been a bottom dweller team, folks. We've not been the Carolina Panthers. I know we haven't gotten necessarily to a playoff success or whatever. We haven't been a purely bad team. I don't know. The thing with this is again a new generation that may come into my chat saying, well, you've got to make me as a fan as I'm standing in the stadium reason to cheer you on. You've got to understand from my standpoint as an old head on this one, and maybe I'm just guy shot in my clouds on this one, but as an old head on this one, that's kind of blows my mind. Were we good in the 80s? Were we good in the 90s? I can go show you a game of 94 and the fandom is in there screaming. I can show you 92, a year you won 2 games, and you're in Seahawks, you're in the Kingdom, and the fans are screaming. The fans are into it. The fans are trying everything they can to help. So this new thing of you guys got to give me a reason to give you effort. Why don't you guys show me something and I'll show you something? It's maybe that's the new trek, but that is also kind of a new thing where that wasn't always the spirit at play here from our standpoint of expectation. I'm with it. I want it. I'm in the same place. I've won the same thing. But to me, The fans in that stadium need to be there every week, regardless of what you're seeing on the field. You've got to be there to the nth degree every day, giving up your voice. And that same spirit's not there at play. And maybe it's come from the spot where the team's got to go out there and win every game. They're coming in this game in first place. That's kind of right there a reason itself. You'd say to, come on, boys, but maybe that's the new way. Maybe the old ways are going out, and the new way is you gotta show me for me show you. I guess when you're paying for $500 a ticket, that's certainly your rightful place to ask or want to see that. Let me say that right. Cameron, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Cameron. This might be looking too far into the future, but what happens with Walker? Do we extend him? Should we extend him? Trade him? We are hardly using him. I think that if Grubb's going to be the play caller here long term, I don't think that it makes any sense whatsoever to be spending money at the running back position. You can talk about bringing guys in that are good draft picks and that can make it happen from that standpoint. But, if he's not going to really utilize the guys, then, no sense in paying them. And when you do look at the decisions coming up here in the future and in this offseason, you're probably going to have to look at signing Geno, DK, Boye Mafe, Charles Cross, maybe Tariq Woolen. We'll see where that thing stands on that. And I think that when it comes to then adding in a Walker deal where he's making $13 million a year or 11, 12, 13 million a year, I just don't think you have the money to get that done. You don't have enough of an offensive onus put on his back to utilize him to the utmost. And if that's not going to be the case, then yeah, you're probably more in a position at that point, Cameron, to have to move him for some draft capital and just keep it moving at that point. I don't know how it wouldn't be smart to take that approach if I'm John Schneider at that point, as well as he hasn't exactly had a very rich history of being successful in paying running backs. Since the last time you paid that third final contract to Marshawn Lynch, and including that deal, anytime you're giving any kind of substantial money to running backs, it's not working out in your favor. Whether that substantial money is, I'm giving substantial, but $4 million deal you give to Eddie Lacy, the money you gave to Chris Carson, the first round money spent to Rashad Penny. Don't spend money on backs. You can spend draft capital maybe, but don't spend money and draft capital. So yeah, that'd be where I would lean with it right now. It's certainly a fluid situation, but I'd have a hard time going down that road with it. I would, Cameron. Thank you for the donation. 1 second, folks. We'll be right back. Marty McFly, thank you for the $12 donation, Marty. He says, I still have hope for the coaching staff and the future of the team, but today was a trash-ass performance and legit embarrassing. Winning Thursday would definitely make this easier to forget. Yeah, it's an accurate way of looking at this, Marty. I'm a guy who will always try to put every individual win and loss in perspective of the grand scheme of things. I'm a guy that will lean into telling you this sport is about parity as much as any sport in the book, that any given Sunday, anything can happen. But I'm also looking at this as a team that's trying to really make noise and take that next step, how to get from a place of ascending to get to a place of contention. And you watch a lot of things on this team that you're seeing right now, which don't indicate contention and which have been embarrassing to watch the past couple of weeks. I think that's the right word to use. It's one thing to lose. It's one thing to lose a close game. It's one thing that you laid all on the line and you can see the effort from your team, but you came up just short. That's one kind of loss to see. It's another thing where you made it easy on them. And today, defensively, with the effort that they provided, with the game plan that they instilled, you made it easy on them. I agree with you. The bottom line of this is that there's definitely hope for this coaching staff, and I do think the future is going to be bright with this staff, and I do think that the tendrils of this scheme will eventually take. But I also think this is as embarrassing a loss as we've seen here in recent history, every bit as bad as the most embarrassing loss under Coach Carroll. And I don't have a lot of reasons for why it had to play out this way. There were things that were here to be controlled and changed that the team didn't change and control, and I'm not sure why. But we made it easy on this Giants team today. They came in needing this win. They came in desperate for this win, and we gave them the easy way out. Hopefully you're right, though. Maybe they get back around to this Thursday game, take down the Niners, and resituate this, recalibrate this, and get us back to a spot where maybe this can look a little bit brighter, Marty. Well said on your part, though. Trash-ass performance, legit embarrassing. Those are two phrases that I would absolutely apply to this game, and I don't apply those lightly. You're paid millions of dollars, some of you tens of millions of dollars. There's 17 games in a season. This ain't the NBA with 82. This ain't baseball with 162. You got 17 to get it done. You can't come out there with a lackadaisical effort. It stands out. It shows out like a sore thumb, especially when you watch other NFL action across the league. But here's the thing with that too. These players in there, this ain't Coach Carroll time through here where everything's going to be guaranteed year in, year out. If you're not going to be the guy to bring that resolve and that mindset, I'm sure Mike McDonald's going to be in a position to go out. We're going to get my guys in here who will. Win or lose, you will bring the effort because that is the part that you can't control. You may not be talented enough. You may not be fast enough. You may not jump high enough. You may not be long enough, but you can control your effort. And I think today the most disappointing part of that for me, especially with the defense, is that part was wildly absent from this game. Tim says O-line was definitely not worse than previously. The penalties were frustrating, and they definitely weren't good, but they were lightly less dumpster fire. A dumpster smolder, if you will. I like that, Tim. I like that. I'd agree. Haley says the problem with people saying it's not a penalty is the right side DT held down the long snapper's head so he couldn't stand, which would have caused the jumper to hit him. I think it's completely valid for that particular play. I'm not pushing back on that at all. I'm with it. Huey says run pass ratio is why we lost. Running the football requires commitment and game planning. K9 is the Seahawks' best weapon. His success opens the field for everyone else. Definitely think he's one of our game changers on this field, and you best to lean into that. Sports Talk says, can DK stop fumbling? I don't know, man. He had two hands on the ball today, Jose. That's the thing you ask him is put two hands on it, and still had two hands on it, still got it knocked out. And I do agree, it's like Christian says, it's just a perfect peanut Tillman punch. Just got in there just the right angle for the one little spot, and, outside of DK dropping to the ground and just clutching it after every catch. Jack Dong says, how the F do the Hawks let someone do the Cam Chancellor to them? I don't know, man. I guess, according to what people are seeing on this, Jack, our center got pulled down. So that's how he got over the top. Marcus says, the Arizona guy said he would be the only one wearing sunglasses next week. He will be a handful during the podcast. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. At least a couple others are also coming into it like, Okay, kitty. The cat's about to cough up a hairball here. This is how upset she is at the performance. Look at what this loss did to my cat. Look at what this did to her. Okay. Poor thing. All right, she's okay. Tommy, what's worse, this loss or the Pittsburgh loss last year? I'm torn. I actually think it might be this one. We hired a defensive head coach for a reason, and this wasn't it. It's going to be hard for me to push one above the other, but to say that it's equivalent to, equal to, Tommy, that's where I'm at with it. I don't know why you applied the Coach Carroll game plan to this one. I'm befuddled. It's without explanation. There's things you can explain. There's things that just are without explanation, and that's one. I don't understand why you've built, and it's the past two games, by the way. This isn't just this game. This is also why you lost the Lions game at the forefront. Is defensively were you shorthanded? Yes. Did you also apply the very same game plan you applied today? Yeah. And it worked about equally as well, right? Michael says, can't they play hurry up offense all game? I think they can use as much as they can. There's a little bit of a worry with it, Michael, in that you can, especially if you're getting 3 and outs, you can have a defense quickly back on the field. And if you have a defense not getting a lot of stops, you can quickly get that defense into a place of getting gassed out. But yes, theoretically you could. New Lax, can we make one thing explicitly clear? Giants are not a good team, especially without Neighbors. This overlooking talk is such nonsense. Yeah, they're bad. Period. Right. Ryan says, preach, Brandon. John says, you guys don't want to hate on TK until he goes to the Chiefs and absolutely tears up the league and his first bad Hall of Famer. Yeah, I'm not. And yeah, there's always that little bit of sentiment out there. And I think if we're coming out of this game and we're trying to make DK the focal point of our discussion coming out this game, we're looking at not the main reasons as to why we lost. And I think that's where we really want the discussion to be at. Slated Force says, I have end zone seats to Thursday's game. I'll do my absolute best to lose my voice. Well, thank you, Slated. I hope we can get a raucous. That team's going to need us on Thursday there. It's going to need you fans. If you're in that stadium, do all you can. This team needs it. Loud every time, whether they're winning or losing, whether they're being good or not. Be loud. Be loud. They need it. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Jordan. He says, we should test for people buying tickets to determine if they are to be a fan or just chat like people do at Mariner games. I only wish we could, man. I only wish we could. I wish, I'd love it, friends, we just could only sell tickets to the people in the IPs within the, all that stuff. You've heard people do at times. I think they do that during the playoffs where teams will just sell to just IP addresses within their geographical area. But yeah, I wish there could be an agreement, or the Mariners or Seahawks could put something out there where they say, if you go to a game, the understanding is that you're going to be loud as hell, that you're going to bring your voice, that you're going to do everything you can to impact the game and have an impact on the game. I would love to see it. I'd love to see it. Do you agree to go in the stadium and be as loud as you can for 60 minutes? No, we will not sell you tickets. You could filter some stuff out that way, I feel like. Even if it's not like a hard line, like, we're going to hold you to it, but just make them, Do you agree with all of your heart and mind? the best 8, says Gibson 850 generally pisses me off the last 2 games. Travis Gibson has given you nothing off the edge. He was your worst rated defender by PFF last week, and I don't think he gave him a lot of snaps in this game, Best, but he gave you nothing with those snaps. Robert says, as they say, never leave the outcome in the hands of the referees and your kicker. Take care of business from the onset of the game. Well said, Robert. That's why, to your point, exactly why I won't get too concentrated on this one as far as the block kick or the penalty not called. I mean, I'm not pushing back against those people saying it's this or it's that. I agree with you. But at the same point in time, you lose this game in a game where you really should have been up by 2 touchdowns on this Giants team. You go up 7-0 after that return fumble at home. Game should be almost about over at that point with the level of talent you're bringing to play versus the talent they're bringing to play. Yet it seemed to completely shift the whole other way through most of this game. John, I want to fix our team so bad, but don't want to give up any draft capital. Sad to say, it's going to take some time to get McDonald his blue-collar lunch pail type players we need to win. Yep, agreed. I think we're going to have to be patient through the rest of this year. I think a loss like this does kind of inform John to a degree, or should inform John to a degree, of hold on to your draft capital, sit in the pocket here and let this thing play out. I would love to be able to improve it another way, but I just don't know how you're going to accomplish it or if that's really important to do so. DVD, why isn't Laviska returning punts as well? He's known as a great return guy, isn't he? He's never really done a consistent amount of punt returning throughout his career. Each team that he's been on, he's been asked to do it very sparingly. He's been more of a kick returner type on that. And some of those guys are just kind of sure-handed, some not. I think that the Hawks are putting the most sure-handed, the guy they have back there to do the job. Make of that what you will. But it's just a bit of a different skill set from kickoffs, I think, where those punters can, drive that ball in a certain weird way, and you got to react to it a little bit differently and how you adjust to it. And it makes it a different type of, punt return thing to catch. But that's my guess on it. I don't know for sure, of course. Angry Bucket, I think this team will be drafting in the top 10 if they play like this. I don't see a win coming in the next 8 weeks. I don't think I'm being overly pessimistic either. Very well could pull out to be the case, man. You're not going through any, super weak opponents in the next couple of weeks. You're going to get challenged. And if a Giants offense like this, that's undermanned as they are, can take it to you like this and your house, it kind of feels like just about anything's possible. And then you have league worst pass protection on the other side of it. A lot of holes to clean up quick. Yeah, second. We shouldn't have even been in that position against the Giants. You're right. Yeah, punts. I know what you meant on the punt return thing. Watching it in training camp DVD, they had about a 17-man crew come through on the 2 days I was there doing the punt returns. They went through a lot of guys. And what that told me in training camp at that time, DVD, is that, this is one where nobody's comfortable really doing it that you have on your squad. It's like, we got 2 quarterbacks, we have none. You got 17 punt returners, you have none. So I think that they probably were doing what they could with what they had on it, and they're trying to get by on it. But it also is what it is. Michael O, no real game plan for the Giants defensive line, especially Lawrence. Not nearly enough help nor balance to keep their defensive line from just going after the passer from the jump. Agreed. Big problem last couple of weeks is too much pass-heavy nature, too much pass-heavy nature early. The too much pass-heavy nature early then opens up that defensive line to pin their ears back and get after you. Also saw some of the same things from the protection standpoint, Michael. There was a spot in this game, and yes, the blitz caused it, but you didn't even block the blitz up. You ended up, I think, still allowing almost a free rusher on the play, where you end up with Connor Williams matched up one-on-one with Dexter Lawrence. That should not be a part of our game plan coming into the week, that we end up in that kind of condition, even with the blitz. And that there were no answers to the blitz on that play on top of it. Kind of all the way around bad on that one. Big task at hand. Question. Since the Giants beat the Seahawks, which denotes that the Giants are the better team, could it be possible that the Seahawks could send Metcalf to the Giants? No, I don't think so. I'm trying to understand the logic on that one a little bit, but I don't know. I don't think that's a possibility. I don't think DCAT is going anywhere. Christian says no counter runs. Laviska's a weapon. Grubb gets predictable and pass happy. He does. To your point on the counter runs or the misdirection, it has been completely absent so far this season through 5 weeks, which is weird because it was such a common part of what the Huskies were doing, especially with pre and post snap motion. And Jordan, I don't know why we're not running fly sweeps. You know, I've been calling for it for years and just we refuse to run it. Steph says Daniel Jones was 14-7 versus the blitz today with 2 touchdowns according to PFF. So we're blitzing, just can't finish. We need finishers. Yeah, but it's also the way you're blitzing, Steph, right? So it's not just that you blitz, it's how you blitz. Is it a 5-man blitz? Is it a 4-man blitz with the 5th blitzer coming late and then it gets lots of time to be protected? Or are you running them off stacked fronts? And I think when you're running a 4-man front and then you're bringing 1 extra blitzer, it had none of the creativity. When I go back, if you guys go watch this game on an all-22, if you've got access to it, watch the all-22 of this game and how we blitzed and the way the blitzes look versus how they look with the Ravens and how they set that stuff up and the way that they would stack boxes and overset to one side and then set 2 guys over here and then drop and pull and come back this way. There's none of that inventiveness within the blitzing. It's like last week when we were blitzing, Steph. It'd be Devin Witherspoon coming off the slot on a blitz. And it was predictable every time it was coming. You could see it coming from a mile away. It's marrying the blitz up with what you're doing in coverages. So you have a day, on one of the times you blitz today, you blitz, but then you have Trey Brown in off coverage on a 3rd and 7. So then they can just run a slant route right in front of Trey Brown for an easy completion. Well, why isn't Trey up in press? Isn't what Trey does best up in press? And don't you usually marry press with when you do blitz the front? So the blitz rate is, yes, a part of the puzzle here, but it's also the type of blitzes you're blitzing and how you're blitzing them off. So I understand there's some success there to a degree with it, but we weren't getting a lot of stops when we weren't blitzing them either, to the other side of it. New Blacks, I went to 5 games in the Holmgren era, and it was loud as F even when they weren't good. That's right. This requirement of that they have to be good to earn your volume of voice thing, which I have seen and posted at times in my chat, not just this show, but I've seen it said a few times over at times. For the folks that might be saying that, you guys, that's a new thing. We didn't used to need to be that way. There's a lot of bad sports play in this region over a 50-year territory. A lot of bad play. But it didn't mean that the fans didn't understand that they couldn't have an effect on the sport in the positive way when they're being loud, and that how it can propel the players and how it can get them a little bit of an extra advantage. I got a cat hair in my nose. I like this cat hair is like right at the end of my nose going, tick-a-tick-a-tick-a. Yeah, Lethal Lance. It'd be okay not to cheer for the Mariners at this point. That's a little bit of a different story, though. I would say that's one where Seahawks organization has certainly shown a willingness to do all it takes to get you to a Super Bowl and build a winner and be aggressive in doing that. Mariners have taken, of course, the complete opposite approach. Ryan Grubb, as the OC at UW, has the tendency to forget that he had a competent run game to go along with a great quarterback and 3 great wide receivers. Playing out that same way a little bit right now. Brian, he says, I do have to say that if I'm going to pay a half-week salary on tickets to see the game, I sort of want to see a quality product. I've yet to attend a game of Lumen that we actually won. I'm sorry to hear that, Brian. And I think it's where both things can be true, I think, where you say, look, that kind of effort on the field is unacceptable. You want me to spend all this on a ticket. It's one thing to lose, another thing to lose if the effort's not there and I'm feeling like the guys aren't ready to play. But I do think we got to be loud, kind of regardless of what happens. We got to do what we got to do to help the team out. Angry Bucket, I don't want to pay Geno. There are games he's awesome, and then there are games where all you do is scratch your head questioning everything that's happening. Yeah, I don't know, man. I have a hard time looking at this game and saying Geno's up. Geno's the problem in this one, or Geno's been the problem this year. I think he's been playing really good football. Remember, in two Angry Bucket, it's hard to play the position when defense living on the field. Worst pass protection in the NFL. Running game either not used or wildly inconsistent. Perform well now, QB. That's tough. That's a tough draw. John says, you can just feel when your team's energy is lacking. You start getting penalties. Players start leaving with questionable injuries and don't come back. I even knew that fourth down play action was doomed. Yeah, I didn't have any confidence on that fourth down play either. I was like, this is... The second says, what the F? I just saw the endings, so we beat ourselves. Yes, we did. That's my take on it. Long live the king, Hawks Nest. Maybe the Byron Murphy factor is a super legitimate thing, and we see it early. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I think he's going to have a hard time fixing all this on his own. But it can't hurt getting him returned when he does return. Scooby Snack says, there's a hug for me to the rest of the chat. Don't worry, be happy. I know it's a hard after a loss like that, but we got to try and have a better game on Thursday. Love the optimism. Love the optimism. Let's go. Lou says, I blame every fan in the stadium for not yelling loud enough. The 12s can change every game. I agree, man. We can have an effect in that stadium if it takes everyone fully throated. If you're expecting the rest of your 12s to pick up that slack and get it done so you can just be quiet there and stuff your face full of a hamburger, it's the same thing as the Seahawks defense looking around going, who's going to make the tackle? Aren't you going to go make the play? No, you're part of the defense. Go make the play. Chris says, Pumpkin, what's your take? What do you think, Pumpkin? Do you got any thoughts on this loss? You predicted this loss. Can you explain yourself? Silence? You're not going to say nothing? You're just going to give me that straight look. At least tell him something. Are we going to win against the Niners? She's got nothing. She's got nothing. New Black says, I like Geno, but if we continue to ignore the offensive line, no point in extending him. He's just going to get injured eventually. Maybe so. I think you got to make a tough decision. You know, when it comes down to the end of it, cost is going to be a factor, and what is really the price to keep him if you're going to keep him, and very welcome and could be a bit of a part of that factor, especially if you're going to be a league worst offensive line where you don't even look like you're yet close to getting this thing back to right, back to front. Angry Bucket, I agree. It did feel like we're watching a Pete team again. VD says, B, the last comment about Byron Murphy could be very true. He's drawn double teams every single game before injury. I don't even think about it until they just said it. Yeah, I mean, it's possible again, too. He was being rotated through, so it wasn't that he was running like the same even number of snaps, I think, of a guy like Leonard Williams out there, but it can't hurt having him back. G-Man, cool. I'm scared to play the Niners too, man. Even with them flailing a little bit to start this year out as well. I'm hard to feel confident coming out of that game. Jeff J, sorry. The performance was disgusting. This was worse than some of the worst Pete Carroll losses the last couple of years. Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel the same way, Jeff. Very disappointing to see this kind of game. Donnie, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. Just checking out the channel. Hope everyone's doing good tonight. We're hanging in there. Soren says San Francisco isn't playing well, so that makes it interesting. It does make it interesting. Brian says, I've always looked at this like, this is football. This is how football is played. You have a run game and you have a pass game. A sufficient balance between the two is your best chance at winning. Agreed. The best is life has been depressing the last week. It was brutal after that Monday night loss, and it's not going to get any easier this next week here. We're just going to have to knuckle up here, my people. Christian, I take the Boise State back. Yeah, Shantae's nice. Giante's nice. Ashton Giante. Jitsu Trigger. If we somehow beat the Niners on Thursday night, the football doesn't make sense. Maybe so. Angry Bucket, why can't John seem to put a good O-line together? Doesn't make it a centerpiece of off seasons or enough of a point of emphasis. To build an offensive line, you don't do it by happenstance. You don't do it by making it priority number 5 on your list of priorities. You got to make it pri 1. Because it's such a position of scarcity, you have to hammer it in that way to address it cleanly in that fashion. John has taken an uptick over the past 3 years and doing more than he had the prior 5 years, but he was taking it from a league worst position and addressing to kind of more middle of the road. Probably called upon more to needed to be done to get this better cleaned up, considering the damage that had been done there by how lean and light that crew was as you look 3 years back to where you had to rebuild the whole thing from scratch because it was in such crappy shape and inadequate shape from years of neglect. So it remains a bit of an Achilles in Schneider's bag right now. And I have a feeling for about the 4th straight off season saying, John, can you make the offensive line a point of emphasis? You don't want to pay for him? Don't pay for him. Make a trade for one then. Draft one in addition to making a trade for one then. Stop going for the $3 million stopgap starters. That's not going to work. But we'll see if he actually learns that lesson, as he seems to be pretty hard-lined on that one. Brandon Jenna, 5 games, that's a glass 7/8 empty attitude. My guess, Hawks, 7/8 empty, 5 games. Sorry, you must be responding to me in the chat. My bad. Yeah, John, I'm seeing a lack of motion from Grubb's offense too. Not sure what to make of that as well. Jeff J, at least the NFC West games went the way they did. So that worked out in our favor. Jordan says, what have you done, Mike? The cat is puking. I know. She can't take this loss. That's what she saw today in the game. Made her sick. Sick. Yeah, John, you got to use the misdirection. You're right. That's where when you sense a defense like this, like we're watching, watch the run game at times and how defenses are just pillaging to the point of attack in the run game. So you see that as an offensive coordinator, you should have the light bulb go on going, man, we're seeing this in a couple of games where the defense is really pushing. The linebackers are shooting the gaps. You know what we should do is we should run misdirection back the other way. And you're not seeing any of that at all. 96 Go Hawks. My cat has asthma, and he always does that when I let him get the zoomies. She's, I think, just got a hairball. She's trying to get out. New Blacks, yeah, the game plan was baffling. Brian says linebacker may be a more important position to look at over the offensive line at the trade deadline. Well, and to your point, Brian, it may be one that's more readily available to be addressed, where I'm a little bit skeptical to believe that there's going to be an offensive lineman available to be traded for, whereas I would have less skepticism that there'd be a quality inside linebacker that you could go out there and find if need be, which looking right now like need be. Yeah, that's why I might get Geno. Geno's going to be sore after this game, and I'm sure he's been so sore so far this season. Dabna Trot. I was at the game. Sadly, the Hawks did not deliver a victory win for my B-Day tomorrow. Very depressing loss for me to stomach being there. I'm sorry to hear that, Dabna Trot. Brutal game to have to watch in person. It was tough watching it on the television. I was halfway through this 4th quarter going, can I just turn this off? We just call this a game? We were only like 10 points down, but it was just, it was a dental visit. Hal got a lot of yards despite a bad offensive line. Geno knows how to attach the defense. He was reluctant to throw the check down today. Attack the defense, I think you're saying. Oh, you're responding above. Sorry, I'm responding to you guys' response to each other there. My bad. Brian says the young players entering the league now ain't what they once were. Most of them are like, I made the NFL, got my bling, I'm good. I definitely think there's something to that. You guys can go turn on a game of players playing in the 90s and go watch a Seahawks team in 94 and how they're throwing their bodies around and all that, and then watch this game where you're not anywhere near the same hemisphere of buy-in. Could be a part of it there. Marty says, is it unrealistic to hope for 11-6? No, but you just we'd have to clean up so much. There's got to be a lot that gets cleaned up very quickly here. And that seems like a lot to get done at this point to get to that 11 wins. And look, I predicted 11 wins at the start of the year. So, I got into that pocket of things, but the issues at play, I didn't expect to be the issues at play. And even with a 3-2 start, there feels like more to clean up than there feels like to work right. It's not bailing on the coaching staff for the long term. I'm with it. But it does feel like this is just going to take a bit more time than we thought, to get going. Tommy says, I've done both. Kick return and punt returns are very different. Not sure how it is with the new kickoffs, but punt return, you want more of a K9, and kick return, you want more of a DK. Yeah, kind of. Brian says, if I had to sum up this performance in one word, I'd say lethargic in all phases. I'm with that. Jordan, is it still realistic for us to get to 10, 11 wins? I don't know if realistic. It's possible more than realistic at this point. If I had to change from adjusting that by just one word there. Marty says, damn, I'll just hope big. Tan says, this will all go away if we beat the 49ers this week and have 5 sacks. It'll make it feel better, that's for sure. The Bass says, for real, just like the Lions game was predictable. It was. I don't understand why you thought the game plan that was completely torn to shreds last week by Ben Johnson was magically going to work this week. It blows my mind. And do forgive me, folks. I know that there's some DK chatter in on this. As I say with the folks that bring up the DK stuff, it's been a topic of conversation for me personally on my channel on every show, going back like 2.5, 3 years. And I think my points and where I am at on this is really, really clear. And so in the hopes of not being too redundant for my audience, I'm not really going to get a lot into the DK stuff. I stand on where I have thoroughly been on that one. I have no further anything to add on it. To me, part of the long term, part of the future. But please do understand if you happen to be one of those folks that wants to get me to go back down this road again. I can't do it anymore. I think I've cleared the conversation as far as I can from the anti-DKites. The anti-DKites I've heard from clearly and resoundingly from. They're a very loud vocal crew, much like the anti-Geno folks. And so the positions are very clear on this one, but I just can't push any more down that bear myself because I just don't think there's anywhere to go on that conversation at this point. You kind of stand where you stand, so to speak, on it. Jack says, I actually think this isn't a preference that should cause trades and roster moves. They better show up on Thursday. Agreed, Jack. I think this is more of a game that tells you stay in the pocket this year and see where this settles out by the final point of the year. Yalin said, I'd rather start Pritchett and Tyrese Knight at this point. I might have. Trey Brown's going to put that kind of performance up, Yalin. Yeah, I might be there with you on it. I might just be there with you on it. I mean, Pritchett didn't look great, Brian, but I mean, he was at least fighting. Trey Brown was going down easy. Though neither of them are going to play the run for you. Zorn says the crowd noise was okay last season during the game, but definitely not the false start peak for opponents in the early 90s. No, sir. John says if all went to the Niner game, we'd win. I bet you're right, John. Yeah, Lucky LaRue. Jaden Daniels is the truth, man. He is very impressive. Kieran says, can we be honest? Woolen is looking for more like last year than his rookie year. I give him credit for that almost all offense is going away from him, but when it doesn't, he looks pretty bad. I mean, he's been good in coverage. Has he come forward as a run defender this year? I think that, to your point on that, that's remains to be seen, I think, on that spot of it. But it's part of what we're looking at. And comes out of this injured with an ankle. See where he will be at with that. Tim says, I can sort of see where the DK detractors coming from. Geno haters baffle me completely. Relax. One thing I get on Geno for a lot is when the defense shows blitz, the entire offense never seems to handle it very well, or Geno just can't get out and get sacked a lot. It feels like that a lot anyway. Yeah, stack fronts, blitzes have been a problem going back to last year. I think it's been a little bit better this year in some of what Grubbs called with some of the quick passes to get the ball out of Geno's hands, but it does remain a bit of an issue on this offense. Jordan's the Hawks Nest, based on what I've seen on our history with the Giants, we usually struggle against them at home, but are very good against them in New York. Why do some teams historically just play bad? I don't know on that. I mean, it's different eras, and I mean, you know, we won. I can remember multiple times with us winning at home against the Giants as well. I mean, if you're looking at the last two times we've lost at home to the Giants, you've had a Giants team come in that's very undermanned and light, and Colt McCoy was backing up last time, and maybe your team just sort of lowered their guard, as much as if you look at the recent trend between those two teams. But I think it does become hard when we talk about going back 30 years and looking at that tracking data. I don't know if there's much to pull out of that, I would say. Jack says, this loss screams drinking at the club till 5 a.m. and then cutting your arm off at work. Wake up! Gibson says there are other issues, but our offensive line is hindering what could be one of the best offenses in the NFL. It must be addressed, or we aren't going anywhere. Well said. Split face. Man, I got to say something. This sucks beyond sucks. We looked pedestrian. We did, man. This is a very disappointing loss where you just go, man, we did not look like we didn't belong on the field with the Giants. The Giants. Ryan says Pumpkin's confidence is shot. It's completely shot. She doesn't know which end is up right now. She don't know which end is up here. Chris says, what Pumpkin needs is some fresh Pike Place salmon market salmon tossing. She'll catch that thing with her mouth. She gets a whole salmon, she'll catch that thing. Right in her jowls. Oh, lucky LaRue. I'm surprised we lost the Giants too, man. Kieran says, you know what's funny about Bradford and Tomlinson? I think you could make an argument they're the two worst guards in the league right now, and they're on the same team. Ha! Gotta love our team. Laughing out loud. Yeah, it's brutal watching him. But it sucks when he says that on 710 ESPN. Why would I want to know for you when I know I won't play well? Oh. Yeah, he's kind of setting the stage for explaining himself in advance for why he doesn't go into that line of things. And I understand where John's coming from in the paying the guards thing. I wouldn't have wanted to give $66 million to Damian Lewis, who wasn't going to fit this new scheme. And, these guys get paid at a certain mark where you're not necessarily getting the performance back for what you're paying in free agency on it. I think, though, he's become very limited in that he only goes to the draft. He then completely also then neglects the ability to go out there and trade for guys. And he doesn't hammer the draft hard enough with the offensive lineman to pull it into making enough of a strength. And, I think this is a place where we could eventually learn this lesson if from John's perspective. And I'm not really sure of why he's kind of on this one turned such a blind spot to it, because this is one of the real common elements you see of the Green Bay Packer organization for years, is that they always put together a competent offensive line. They're always investing in the draft into their offensive line. And John just doesn't go that way with it, but we're paying the price for that a little bit right now. Yeah, Jaden Daniels has been as impressive for a rookie quarterback. I mean, even what he's doing right now is even more impressive than what CJ Stroud did last year. And that's saying something. He has kind of been on a different level. John says, how do you build an offensive line when you're plucking from spread teams who never run the ball? You can only pluck from a few teams, it seems. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find. It is. And I think that John Schneider's perspective on this in the draft and taking guys in the first round or drafting guards high and they get overdrafted, and it's hard to do that. Do you want to overdraft a guy by a round just because it's a necessity or need? Well, that's drafting for need. That doesn't lead to drafting success. But that is a little bit of the pickle I think that Johns finds himself in here, and with needing to address it and find a way. John says, I think more than drafting a top offensive lineman, we need to pay for a top tier one in free agency. That's the hard part for me to go down line there, John, because it's, we get these real world examples, and the real world examples don't tend to be that you're paying what you think you're getting, and that you have to overpay for it at that. But we've got to address it somewhere or another, to your point. We've got to do something. Can't keep sitting there on the same approach here with this one because it's not working. Proper, my team is done. Kyle Banana Hands is an outdated coach who just blows leads. The league took his scheme and improved it. He hasn't adjusted, losing the team too, similar to Harbaugh's last year. Well, Proper, I don't get to be super confident over the top of you on this one. We're both two teams coming into this one sort of limping a little bit in a lot of different ways. And it's just kind of a strange year here to start out on that side of it. So a lot of season left, man. We'll see how this, does play out. John says, maybe this is the humbling game we need to get back on the drawing board. Might be. DVDB, but home field advantage. Quiet crowd, though, no advantage. Correct. And that's then how you see teams able to come into your house and win games. And that's why I have such a reaction to this, that we're seeing this as a trend. Earl J. Cole. Kaoli. Man, we can't even make fun of the Cardinals for being a baseball team this week. They won and we lost to a low-tier team. Laughing out loud. I know, man. What an opportunity lost this week if we gotten this win, and where we'd be sitting right now coming up to this game against the Niners. Big-time lost opportunity. John says, anybody notice how much we're getting sliced by the RPOs? Yes, sir. Angry AB, why was this performance so different than the last 4 weeks? There was an obvious difference the last 3 games. I'm not counting Lions because we were down 6 guys. It was 9-day difference. It felt a little bit more of an offshoot of the Lions game to me. Holy hand grenade. Just the effort level wasn't there. The energy wasn't there. The schematic plan that was put in place of how you would attack the team wasn't there. It's kind of pick whatever you want. You're not getting the pass rush. You're not tackling. You're not getting turnovers. I think the last 2 weeks, it's been kind of the same on that all the way down the line. You're right about the guys being down. There being some injuries, but it's been a commonality between the 2 weeks. And what stands out is that you're playing some soft defense. You're playing 4-man fronts. You're dropping into zones. You're letting it all kind of happen in front of you, and you're not doing a lot to take it to the offenses. And at the end of the day, this defense is playing on its heels, not on its toes. It's not playing with any sort of sense of aggressiveness. It's reactive across the board. Benelli says it was ugly. Were there adjustments? Not that I saw. The team tried blitzing a little bit as we got into the second half, more than they had early in the game. But it was a little too late, and the blitzes were kind of boring at that point. Some of the same, the 5-man kind of blitz stuff that we've run prior. Michael Guevara says, any news on Abe Lucas? No real updated news on Abe Lucas as of yet. I think we'll get more clarity on this in the next 2 weeks from where it's been, Michael. And this question mark will resolve itself here pretty shortly, as, you know, season's going to be winding down here pretty soon. It's going to be a S or get off the pot kind of situation on that. I would expect he's going to come back at some point this year, but they're being very careful. Tommy says, I'll say it again. The biggest issue is you shaved your playoff beard prematurely, all but sealing our fate. Can't win with the baby face, my brother. Maybe so. Maybe I'll bring back the beard and try to change that here this week. That'd be something. That would be something. Brandon Jenna agrees. He says, babyface bust. Beard be booming. I need a break. I need a beard break. I need a little bit of breathing. I need some airing out of the face. Seahawks Gaming. I'm jumping off, Brandon. Another fluke season. They didn't have Neighbors or Singletary. I get it, man. I get it. I feel you. I'm in the same kind of similar state of mind. Proper says, at least your team is building. My window is closed. Overpaid, injury-prone veterans. It is 2 different teams in 2 different states proper, and that is where we are, turning this loss over. But I think in the grand scheme of things, people are still very encouraged by this team and what the potential is going to be for this team down the road by how they've been built and the core that's in place. I feel where you're at with your team right now. I get it. I do think you guys are still in a position here to look. The division's wide open, man, and NFC's wide open, and nothing is anywhere near settled yet. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't think you guys are done quite yet. And you win this game against us, and you're sitting in first place, and all starts to be a little bit better in the world. DVD, the number 12 is retired for us fans and our noise. Even Nike put 12 feathers on the collar and the outseam of the uniforms we have had since they took over the contract in 2012. Do your job, fans. Do it. Split face, we get any confirmation that the goalie block wasn't a penalty that was missed? It appears that it was a penalty in the respect of not for him leaping over the top split face, but the reason he was able to leap over the top is our center got pulled down on the play, which is not supposed to happen. Missed call in the moment, but certainly it didn't have to come down to that. Hand Grenade B, did you have your call-in show? I did not. I ended up forgetting I had a niece's birthday this week, so we might have to do it this next week. It's hard here, this Hand Grenade, these 3 games in 11 days thing, and trying to do it through that period is just... NFL season's hard sometimes to kind of get the right rhythm back when doing these shows, and especially it's been tough because we have so many shows every week. I'm up to... We're running 9 shows a week right now. So I'm kind of in that hold on for dear life. So I'm trying to get it in. I definitely am, but I haven't yet. And we'll try to get that posted here this next week. If I can't do it in the first 4 days, then we should have some time on the weekend here after a little bit of finally some slowdown to kind of catch our breath. John says, I'm not letting Grubb off the hook. 13 points, really, with this weaponry? We scored 20. Oh, I see what you're saying. 13 on the thing, yeah. Yep. He certainly deserves his share of the slice of it too here. TJ, the Giants were missing their best players on offense, and we let them chow down. Like, how the hell do we give up almost 8 yards a carry to a backup running back? I don't know. It's embarrassing is the word that I used earlier. I think that's been something else somebody said on this too many times over, and I think that's what it is, TJ. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing performance because it feels like a lack of effort at times in this game more than it is you got outplayed. And that's the thing you never, as an NFL team, want to have questioned. Did we give all of our effort today? Did we do everything we could from an effort standpoint to win this game? Or did we kind of phone it in? And I felt like the defense today, especially, and probably parts of the offense, had some phoning in periods. Kieran says, you know what doesn't help? A crappy O-line, one-on-one blocks for an entire game and nothing but empty and spread sets. Where's the two tight end sets? Where are the heavy sets with Haynes or whoever? I don't understand. Nope, not a lot of diversity on this offense. Very much kind of a one-note sort of situation. And proper, I think you're right. We have the worst division in football this year. We thought we might have the best again, but it's turned on its head quite considerably. Tommy says, not that Geno's bad. Are we good enough to invest in him? That's the issue. I say build the O-line first. No sense in a good quarterback without a good O-line. That makes you the Colts with luck. I think you got to make some decisions. You're right. I think nothing is as straightforward as an easy choice here on this, and everything's got to be a bit weighted in. And also a big part of the weighted in part here that we don't know is what Geno's going to want to be paid, what he can be paid on the open market. He's on the open market, but what another team would be willing to pay him. So it's a complicated question, and I think one we don't have to necessarily answer right now at the moment. Let's let that one go through the full season of where this line settles in at, where the defense settles in at, and then make that determination. But I think you're right, Tommy. If the offensive line is in a place of disrepair still after this year, if it doesn't look like it's any really closer to getting to where it needs to be, Lucas can't get back from the knee injury, you might have to factor that into some of this quarterback decision-making. I agree. But now DK is the man. Anything said about him that's not positive? I have no idea what they're talking about, looking at. Yeah, it's most things I can't. I'm gonna be pro DK. I'm riding with DK. John says Schneider might get fired if this McDonald thing doesn't work out. Yeah, I think that the ownership will give time to it to work out, though. He's like 5 games in, with him. I don't think they're going to say, well, 1 year in, that's. I think that there's going to be an amount of time here, and I think the team would be smart to give it that time. Yeah, I don't know, John, if we can go to the wrong decision here. I think we got to give this time before we come to that. Let's let it play out a little bit. Oh, I see. You're saying I'm joking. Okay. Split faces. I got to ask you, man, why has the O-line not been the same since Max Unger got traded? I know that that's the place that many people will go to as far as when the line started to break where it all went to hell once Unger left. And I'm not disputing the fact that it was a major loss at the center position that's never been filled since Unger moved on. But what happened and where this went, and this is one of the reasons when somebody else mentions above about spending on Geno or spending on any quarterback and putting anybody to the $50 million mark, is when you pay those quarterbacks up at that mark, you have to make tough decisions somewhere else on your roster. There is no way to pay a quarterback 50, 60 million and say, and then this is going to be a strength and we're investing that. And that's going to be a strength and we're investing that. And that's going to be a strength and we're going to invest in that. And all of this over here, that's all going to be a strength too. And we're going to invest in that. When you pay up at that high water mark, now there's going to be other places on your team you're going to have to decide to, in essence, make a weakness. So when the Seattle Seahawks decided that they are going to make Russell Wilson a top-end paid quarterback in this sport, it came at then the cost of building up a great offensive line. Now, I know that people lament this, but you're asking, what happened. This is what happened. It's not whether or not it's good or bad or right or wrong move. But what they wanted to do then is they want to make sure they still had their skill position players. They wanted to make sure they're putting all of those extra maximum investments into the Coach Carroll defense. And then they were going to go light on the offensive line. That was the choice they were making. And they did a lot part of that because they had a Russell Wilson that was improvisational and worked off script. And so they go, well, why have an offensive line for a guy that, there'll be great pass protectors for a guy working off script? We'll just go cheap there. He'll be able to be a magician and we can work around having the inadequacies we do on the offensive line. But it related back to you paying what you're spending on the quarterback, not wanting to go cheap anywhere defensively. And that's how you had to roll it. So it's been a little bit changed over the last 3 years where they've tried to invest more into the offensive line. If you look at the draft capital over the last 3 drafts, put into the offensive line, and then look at the prior 3 years from these 3 years, right? And if you just kind of compare them, we've put way more into the offensive line and draft capital over the past 3 years than those other prior 3 years over a 6-year period. So there has been a change here. Has it been enough? No. Has it been still too soft? Has it been still too, this is the only way we're going to be able to improve this is by drafting great, and that's not enough? Yeah. There's been no supplementation with this offensive line. Specifically, they keep trying to go down this 1-year aging vet who's on his last legs kind of guy and ride with him through a year on a cheap contract, and rather than going and finding really true quality out there. It's not working. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. Will the illustrious Pumpkin use her clairvoyance on Wednesday to reveal the Thursday night victor? Hashtag Pumpkin no. Well, indeed, folks, if you weren't aware on this one, unfortunately, our Pumpkin saw this one coming. We should have listened to her, I guess. We should have listened to her. She got the Giants on the left. You got the Seahawks on the right. Salmon in both bowls. She's looking back going, Dad, I got to do it. I don't want to do it, but I got to do it. Sorry. Look, she gave me another sorry there. She's trying to hold her belts back. She's like, I got to do it, though. She starts to go to the Seahawks. She's going to the Hawks. And then she goes over to the Giants. She saw it, though, Garth. She saw it, man. She saw. But let us ask her now. Let us find out what our clairvoyant psychic cat has to say about this upcoming Niner matchup. Pumpkin, I ask you. Are the Seahawks going to beat the San Francisco 49ers on Thursday Night Football? Are they going to win? I think I got an I don't know, but I mean, you guys maybe heard yourself as well as anybody on this one, so I'm not sure there, Garth. Magic Vlogs, honestly, being at the game was great. Unfortunately, the game was not. Foster McTeague, Mike Mack openly says we need to give the ball to K9 more. Does that mean more passes to K9? Because we all know Greb doesn't run the ball. I would, maybe that. But I think you got to find a way to acclimate him in more here, especially early on in the game. Can't wait until the deep into the third quarter to start getting him going. Jonathan Salazar says, so glad we chose McDonald over McQuinn. Quinn's team is 4-1 over tougher opponents with a rookie quarterback, less talent at wide receiver, and a better coached and more disciplined defense. We'll see how it goes over the course of a full season with that. I still feel good about the hiring. I think also, Jonathan, there's something to be said on you're trying to go to a complicated form of defense, and to get that done, it's probably not going to happen overnight. Don't know if he's going to have the same success here, Quinn, that he had there, that he's having initially out there at Washington, but I can't deny they've got it working out there. It's rolling. Tommy says there are like 5 or 6 good guards in the entire league. You can't fault John's position, but it's no excuse. You have to try. Yeah, it's one where I can get the frustration that's out there. I have a little more patience I want to see you change your ways from the prior 10 years. We go from the younger years onward where you decided you didn't want to make any high draft picks, really any offensive linemen, but when you were really driven to absolutely positively have to and you had no choice but to do it. And then it was driven by need. And so you go, okay, make it a point of emphasis where you're just going to make a couple picks every year onto that line and make some of them high picks. And they have done that the past couple of years. Part of the issue, though, is at the head of this is that the line had gotten into such 3 years ago a disrepaired state where you had zero building blocks. You didn't have a left tackle of the future, no left guard, no center, no right guard, no right tackle of the future. You had zippity-doo-dah, zippity-a as far as any potential or future. So you were building at that point from scratch. And to build any unit from scratch is going to take time. And that's where I do have a little bit of patience for him on this. I am certainly not going to run him over the coals when it comes to paying for guys in the open market on the offensive line, because you do tend to overpay, because you don't always really tend to get your returns back for paying that. But the lack of looking for even a trade and seeing if there's something, and maybe there's just no trade to be found. Maybe that's also a bit of it. But it does seem like he hasn't tried to use that as a method of approach either in order to try to find a solution here. Soren says, do you think Seattle was looking past New York to the San Francisco game? It's been known to happen. It certainly has been known to happen. There's a human nature element involved here. I don't believe that would be the case in this game. Reason being is that this team hasn't shown it's good enough to this point to just show up and win football games. Reason two, you just came off being embarrassed on national TV not 4 or 5 days prior. How do you come into this game thinking that you're just going to be able to moonwalk your way through it after the Lions lapped you on that football field, especially defensively? And I certainly didn't feel any sort of urgency from this defense like that the lessons were to be learned from that Lions game resonated. So it's possible, but I think that this was a little bit more than that in how it looked to me. Certainly hard to say for sure. Nick says, Seattle isn't scary to play in anymore. We have lots of away fans take the stadium over. Half the fans aren't yelling and don't have the passion. Yeah, it's pretty. We were talking a little bit about that earlier in the stream today on this, Nick, and I think that's definitely a bit of a consensus on where this has kind of started to go to. It's disappointing to see, but not a lot we can do about this. John says, I swear this Abe thing is going to turn into Where Waldo for the rest of the season. We should start a meme. We should. Hopefully he gets back. Zombie, I have a hope that Mike actually is, I won't say forced, but has no choice but to let go of Pete's defensive schemes and finally force our defense to play his scheme, even if it means we give up plays. I'm fine with it. You know, I'm okay if we give up plays doing something different. I'm okay going through growing pains, doing something different that's failing as we're going through those growing pains. I'm not going to be okay going through the same defensive approach that we've just been applying for the last 7 years that has fallen flat on its face time and again, week after week, opponent after opponent, backup quarterback after backup quarterback. It doesn't work. Let it go. Until this front four can show with any sort of semblance of consistency that they can get the pressure on their own, stop relying on them to do it because they aren't getting it done. You're going to have to manufacture stuff. We're going to have to draw simulated pressures. We're going to have to stack the boxes. We're going to have to play press coverage. We're going to have to run man-based cover concepts. And if you get beat on the back of that, so bloody be it. But don't lose the same way. It defies logic. It doesn't make any sense. Split face, man. I feel like Mike didn't trust the personnel out there. How many drafts till Mike gets his guys? Hard to say, man. Hard to say. Depends on how hard they address it, how much resources they dedicate towards it. And that part's kind of only Mike knows how many guys he really has who he wants to roll with in the future, or what he can work with, what he can't, what he needs to change. I'll have a better answer for you on that by the end of the year. Donald Carpenter, no halftime adjustments. Rookie head coach doesn't know what he is doing. Certainly didn't see many, to your point. Tommy, Lions legit have no weak point on their line, even at tight end or receiver. Blocking, got to be them. Washington is legit good too. Oh, here's Beamont. Ryan Ball, I missed most of the game. We were still out Maffei, Williams, and Murphy. Maffei and Murphy were out. Ryan, you did have Williams, but Williams did not play at his normal self. I think he's got a busted rib, and I don't think he's at anywhere near 100%. He was getting pushed out of holes that I don't typically see him getting pushed out of. Gibson, I do not like the intensity or preparation, especially off a loss. There was no urgency or adjustments made. Yep. Felt like about the same game plan defensively that you tried to apply this week. Almost same offensive game plan. Ricardo, did Hall leave the game? I don't think Hall left the game. Uchenna left, though. DVDB, as always, thanks for always treating your chat fans with such respect and actually reading all of our crap. Most don't do that. They just vent. Again, God amongst insects, laughing out loud. Well, thank you, man. I love my interactions with you guys, and I do, even in tough losses like this. It helps me cope, helps me overcome, helps me kind of understand this loss a little bit better, makes me consider things I'm not considering as much as I should at the forefront. I know it might come off at times that I give you guys maybe know-it-all kind of vibes in what I do, but it's absolutely never the intention, as much as that might come off that way. Where it is a lot to be learned in going and doing these live streams, and that we as a cumulatively come together here and kind of put our heads together, you get to a lot, I think, closer of the truth when it's all said and done. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. And I think split face, you're going to be able to pay both Geno and DK. I was running the numbers this week, looking at the cap situation. We'll eventually probably dedicate a show on how we're going to be able to sign these guys. But you can get a new deal done with both of those two guys, even on big market kind of deals. Kind of, you still then can come back and save about $5 million a piece on each of their two deals on next year's cap. In addition to that, so you can sign them both and save basically $10 million off of what their cap hit is due to cost next year as it stands. DJ says defense has no excuse this Thursday. Amen. Amen. I think I'm a little behind on my donos. Sorry here. No, I'm okay. And Henry Diesel, thank you for the $5 donation. Henry, do we go back and say it's okay? It's our first year with new organizations, or we say F everybody? I think that from a personnel standpoint, you typically are going to have a new head coach coming in, and they're going to be evaluating that first year rather than looking at the chopping block. And that chopping block you might expect initially with McDonald coming in is more to happen in year two, as he can separate the wheat from the chaff and know what's going to really work in the future and what he's got to leave behind. And so that's probably going to be more of what we encounter this offseason with the team, and who stays and who goes and who's part of that future, and what will and what will not work. So this is where we got to be in that pocket of patience on this season. As much as it was a fun 3-0 start, and as much as there's still a lot of hope for this year for where you stand, there's got to be a level of patience that we apply to this coaching staff and team right now, in my opinion, because it is new and it's going to take a little bit of time. But I still do trust in the ends justifying the means. At the end, the moving on from Carroll to going to McDonald, the time it will take for this to onboard will be worth it when it's all said and done. It just may not happen as fast as so many are hoping for there, Henry, But I think patience is a big key point this season, something I will be heavy in my amount of advising, Marty McFly, thank you for another $12 donation. And thank you again, Henry, for your donos on that. There are 12 teams in the league without a Super Bowl. I want that to change sooner than later. Well over 1/3 is kind of wild to me. I'll always root for the underdogs. Well, we've been in one of the underdog cities across sports for many different years, and we know how that feels, and we know how rotten that is and how hard that is. And You got franchises that not only have been without a Super Bowl, Marty, they've got the brutal runs on their records as well, right? The Purple People Eaters of the 70s who went to 4 straight Super Bowls and didn't win one. The Buffalo Bills who went to 4 straight Super Bowls and didn't win one, and a lot of those games got blown the F out. And that's on top of their books and not getting back there, and it is brutal for them in that way. And the sport is not a fair one. As much as parity is at the forefront of it, if you are not put together right, if you do not have the right team, if you don't have the right level of intensity, if you've not drafted and developed and spent all along the lines of really well, you're not going to get there. You're not going to make it happen. And so you got to keep that in mind at all times, that you need to be taking care of all things. Just one of the reasons we made this change, I think, Marty, from a coaching standpoint, is you felt like, okay, well, I feel like we are drafting better. We're starting to kind of spend our money a little bit better, but the coaching still seems to be holding us back a bit as everything stands. But yeah, it's a tough sport with that, Marty, with some of these teams and how many years they've gone without having a chance at it. And a lot of dynasties, a lot of teams that have gotten there, not a lot of dynasties, but a good number of dynasties to get their share of collection of multiple Super Bowls, from your, Steeler teams to your in the 70s, to your Niner teams in the 90s, to your Cowboy teams in the early or late 80s, and Cowboys in the early 90s, and a couple wins Super Bowls there to Denver. They've got freaking 3, and New England running through with as many as they've got. It's hard. It's hard to win the big one here. It's really tough. This sport is a brutal one in that standpoint of it. Hell, even in leagues like baseball or basketball, sometimes you can have things like the guy willing to spend a little bit more money has got more of an inroads to do it. I don't even think that kind of opening of an advantage is there for most owners. You got to just do it the hard way. You got to grind and get it right and get a lot of things right to eventually get there. That's that bit of the luck factor that falls into play too, where you can check off every box as far as taking care of everything you needed to from a organizational standpoint and have all the pieces in place, but you just can't get it over the finish line. Thank you, Marty. Well said on your part, though, and I will as well. Always root for the underdog. Janeth, thank you for another $5 donation, Janeth. Very kind of you. Very, very kind of you. How much of this is having a college offensive line coach in Scott Huff, who I love, coaching NFL guys? Well, I think that if the offensive line was in a good state over the last couple of years, and it had, gotten worse here with Huff, I'd maybe be in the boat of saying that this is a little bit of an offshoot of having a college offensive line coach. But being that this is an offensive line that's playing right around in the same place that they've been playing the past couple of years, I go back to, as a bottom line for me, of it's a talent issue. But beyond just a talent issue, it's also a talent issue combined with the good talent you have on the team still so young and green that you can't maximize that performance yet. And it's the combination of those two things more than it would be Huff's inequities. Maybe he's not doing the group any real favors. Maybe he's not, to your point, Janeth, supercharging this development of these linemen. But it has been an issue here for years and years and years and years. And it's a young crew. And you're down at times, as we look at it, you are down to your third tackle for pretty much most of this year from Huff's standpoint, and he has gotten functional plat of stone. There's only so much he can do with a Laken Tomlinson, where Laken doesn't got a lot of gas left in that tank. You're on fumes right now with the guy. How much can he do with him there? He's got Connor Williams, who comes in late at the 25th hour, no training camp, coming off the ACL. He's starting. And then you have Bradford with his up and down raw sort of game. So there's a lot there for him to kind of do. And hey, at least we got to give him a little credit where Charles Cross does look by far his best version here to begin this year. But a valid question to ask. Part of our wonder this year with him coming in as a college coach in that way. John says, if anyone questions why we lost, go watch TJ play right now and watch the effort he gives every play. Yeah, TJ definitely is. He lays it on the line, playing and play out that kid. Zombie Central, damn, you're telling me a rookie head coach is doing worse than a seasoned veteran that's been to multiple Super Bowls? Exactly, Zombies. Well said. Well said. How is Dallas losing? Well, I haven't seen the game, but Dallas, they're back up in this one, so I must be behind the comment on that one. Don Carpenter says 11-6. Try 6-11. Green Bean Jordan. Sorry. Brandon, yeah, I didn't know Hall had the injury. I didn't see it on that one. Woolen's got an ankle thing. He left. Didn't look super serious, but we'll see on that one. Might have rolled an ankle or something. Ryan Ball, yeah, Mafe Murphy definitely would have helped. Definitely would have helped. Donald Carpenter says, I went through Corn Robinson and Daryl Taylor. DK is a superstar compared to them. Agreed. Rich Coleman, talk about mailing it in. Julian Love press conference. Really felt like he didn't give a crap. Hit me the wrong way. I'll have to check it out there, Rich. That's unfortunate to hear, especially with the effort we saw from them today. Marty, yeah, nothing beats our throwbacks. Throwbacks full time next year. Come on, let's do it. Every day, all day. Tommy says, I just don't get how we go from 38 first downs last game to this. What happened? New York Jets have a decent front, but nothing amazing. Don't know, man. Don't know. You went away from the run game quite a bit. Obviously, New York controlled the ball in this game. You had 22 minutes of possession. You got 58 plays off, but if your defense can't get off the field, it means your offense has to be super duper efficient to make it happen. And they weren't necessarily that today. They also did a little bit of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit here too. And bad drops, fumble by DK. Also part of this. On to the question McDonald has to ask himself is, what players does he trust with his career? Yeah. It's a big question at hand. Who are you riding with going forward? Who do you got as far as buy-in goes? Kind of a bit of a surprise, too, to see the effort from the team like this. Like, you guys all know, you guys are basically doing a job interview this year, too. This ain't a coach that's been here for 10 years that's going to excuse your this and excuse your that. There's going to be probably a bit of a cold-blooded application applied here if he's not seeing what he wants to see from an effort standpoint. And a new coach, I'd imagine, going to Johnson, I ain't going to put up that. Why would we want to have that? We need the effort. We need the energy. We need the buy-in. Ellen says there's some fans that almost enjoy being pessimistic because they can't handle being disappointed. I suppose so. Yeah, that's probably a bit of that, Yellen. Yeah, that's probably a great point. DJ says McDonald took Hall and Maffei's game to another level. It's exciting when they become great. I love those guys' future, man. They're looking really good. Legitimate edges for the future and guys that can be all around very good players. Another sack here from Hall in this game. Looking good. Carlos says, can't give up on talent we already have just for petty reasons. Got to keep stacking the talent so we can become a Super Bowl contender. Well said, man. Very well said. The Blacks Vikings as a franchise have the third most wins in NFL history in the Super Bowl era and 0 Super Bowls. Playoff Vikings are a different Vikings, unfortunately, but it's the case. Huey says JS was awful for 7 solid years. So bad, in fact, when he had 2 good drafts, he's lauded as some Sevengali. Good GMs just don't. A good general manager isn't just the draft. Jason's bargain bin free agents have hurt the franchise. Creed Humphrey alone. Preach on, Huey. Preach on. Yeah, Eric, we're going to need to run the ball a little bit more. His name is pronounced Linking Tomlinson. Not Lakin, but Linking. I don't want to look back. I want to look forward, but firmly believe Seahawks need to do things differently if they want the results to be different. I hope and pray Big Mac sees it that way too. Well said, Huey, and I hope so too. I hope so too. This is trying something new and different from what we've been trying is what we're trying to get done here. And the last two games have not exactly felt like that. To your point. Tommy says, I say on defense, Williams, Moffitt, Murphy, Dotson, Love, Spoon, Jenkins, one, and that's it. There you got Hall in there. I was like, don't leave out Hall. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't know about Dotson at this point. I'm on the fence with these new linebackers. There's been some good stuff from Dotson. There's some not so great stuff too as well. I think his grade's going to be pretty brutal coming out of this game. It's not going to be good. William, maybe. What are you looking for when the Seahawks face the 49ers Thursday, and do you think the Seahawks win? Two main points that I would be looking for in this upcoming game. Number one, running the ball and getting downhill on this 49ers team. They run a wide 9 4-man front, and that means that what you're doing is essentially taking a traditional 4-down lineman that would be like this, right, in general terms, and you're widening them out to that, okay? So what that does is it naturally exposes some holes in especially the A and the B gap runs, come downhill, hit it with some power runs, and you can get after the scheme in that way. It's been easier said than done in years prior because they've had such a talented defensive line that could overcome it, and the linebackers played so well behind them. They're without Dre Greenlaw. They don't have quite as good linebacker play, though Fred Warner's still elite. So it's an easier said than done proposition, but when you look at how inconsistent they've been with sticking with the run and their commitment to it so far this year, it's a clean, easy way there to start to get to some commitment early on, try to control the clock, try not to let your defense have to be, slowly bled out on this football field like they have the past 2 weeks. So I would start there. I think you've got to manufacture some stuff in this game too, if it's going to be hard sailing as far as getting your yards traditionally in the passing game. So Laviska Shenault, hey, we're going to finally have a week here. We can make him a little bit of some of the, not focal point, but get him mixed in with 4, 5, 6 touches in the game on top of running. Misdirection, trick plays, extra stuff to try to help a little bit on this offense out in that way. And then defensively speaking, it comes down to it for me on this. Same thing. Do you want to apply the same thing that you've done the past 2 weeks? Do you want to run 4-man fronts? Do you want to run real infrequent stack fronts? Do you want to run these real delayed, lazy blitzes that really don't even come close to getting home? Or do we want to run more stack fronts? Do we want to run more pressure? Do we want to run more press coverage on the outside? The Niners are a team that struggles in getting off of in man coverage. That's where they struggle. They're very much built to want to go after you in zone coverage. We got hammered today in zone coverage. So man coverage, stack boxes, willingness to blitz. Try to do as much as you can to force Brock Purdy to be confused back there and what he's seeing post-snap from what he sees pre-snap. This would be the direction I would take coming into this game. Taking it to them defensively. Don't sit back and wait and wait and react, but take it to them. Be active in your approach. Be willing to dial this up a little bit. That's where I would really go at it from my tactical standpoint in this game. And if you get beat by being over aggressive at that point, so be it. I will not bitch and moan about that almost in the least, because I knew that I'll have known the other side of it wasn't going to work either on that end of it. And at least you're trying something new, and at least maybe there's some details from this aggressive approach you've taken in this game to then build off of out of this game and to fix and get better and more well honed in when you want to use this style of defense down the road. As opposed to, well, all we can run is the 4-man fronts and soft zone coverages and just try to hope that everybody can hold up. So I would take that approach. I don't know if I have a lot of confidence that they'll take that approach, but that'd be the way I'd go with it. Mark Sanchez, thank you for 11 months, almost a year as a Hawks Nest member. I thank you for that dedication and support to the channel. Can someone please tell me why that block field goal wasn't a penalty? I don't have an explanation for it, no. Somebody was telling me, and I've got to look into the rule book on the Sanchez. You know, these rules all got 15 different offshoots for if this, but if they're over on this side. Somebody was telling me that the guy could leap over the top of the other guy because of the fact he was in the A gap and not over the top of the center. But then the center was pulled down on the play, so he could not get up to get that guy that was trying to leap over the top. And you're not supposed to be able to pull the center down. That should have been a penalty. So it would appear that that was an absolute miscall there by the officials, of course, down dirty in there in the middle of all that action. It's hard to see a pull down probably, but man, you can't really review a penalty on that stuff, right? They got to call it in the moment. But I think you're right. I think it was a penalty probably. John says, we haven't been able to move people off the line of scrimmage and create holes consistently for so long. Yeah. Agreed. Playlist Trav, I think this is growing pains. I think you are going to see some growing pains on this. And that's where we come back to the patience spot of this Trav, where there could be disappointment and a feeling of a lost opportunity in this game. I think that there can be a sense of, hey, I got to be patient with this year and understand that as much as I want this to come together right now, as much as I'm ready for a contender, as much as I've had to live off of one playoff win since 2017, as much as that's pulling at my spirit here, I've got to put some patience into the pot here and understand that there's going to be these growing pains, and this is going to maybe take a little bit of time to get this thing right. Christian, the 2 1-year linebackers on 1-year deals I wouldn't extend. No, I wouldn't either at this point. Dazilla Hawk, what's up, man? It's good to see you, Dazilla. We need Papa Murphy to return. Boy, do we ever. All hands on deck at this point for the Niners. I'll tell you that. DJ says, we couldn't do anything against this defense, and the Niners have a better one. It's true. Hard to see it as a win as it looks right now with the way that things are set up here. Braden Larson, I don't know. We might only get 1 win in our next 5 games based on how we just played. Hard to say on that. It is possible. It's early in the year. Nothing is set for how the season's going to go for this season for any team right now. We get a lot of teams early on in years that can trick you on how they look, and then it's a very different story when you get to the end of the season. So we'll have to see how this plays out, but it certainly is a possibility for the way that this could go, Braden. If they play like they have the last 2 weeks, kind of hard to see how that doesn't end up being the result. Can they find improvement? Can they find something to start to build off of here? We'll see. Kieran says, how many years has it been since we beat the Niners? It's been long, so I've forgotten. Yeah, I think it's 2021. I think you won in San Francisco, I think, where we knocked out Garoppolo and then they had Trey Lance in the game. It's been that long. Flipping flapjacks, all those cornerbacks we brought in during the offseason, and Trey Brown is out there getting cooked. Trey had the worst game of his career out there flipping. I mean, he's been a functional corner for us, you know. He's been a pretty good corner for us. But he got just destroyed in this game. It's wild. It comes down to the trenches, as always. We have to win the battle up front with the Niners. It's true. Big part of that game will be what you do in the trenches, for sure. Kevin says, I mean, if we look at the bigger picture, this will be an opportunity to see if McDonald can fix those that haven't learned football well. And if he has to drop the old and bring in the new, it will all work out. Well said, Kevin. Yep. You learn about your buy-in from your players. You have your gut check here. You have a pride check here. You've got embarrassed the past 2 weeks. How are you going to respond defensively? Player to player. How are you going to respond? How are you going to respond individually? And Mike gets to learn a lot about this team and the identity of the players on this team right now here in the next couple of weeks, because these have been 2 embarrassing games for your defenses. Good luck. He said the guy jumped between a gap, not over the top. Yes, as I understand it, that's what made it, that part legal of it. The pull down of the center is the part that I would probably more lock onto. But I wouldn't harp too much on the field goal. This is really a game that's about other things that as to why you lost as much as anything. Kieran says, dude, the entire center of the line had their heads pulled down. I don't know how they can pull down the center when no one is allowed to line up over the top of them. I don't either on that. I don't know how officials how they missed that as well in the moment. Huey says, every head coach is a rookie head coach at some time, even the Hall of Famers. I remember my first beer. That's right. Jack says, I assume P. Diddy is no longer going to be part of Bezos' bid to buy the Hawks. I would hope not. I would hope not. It was 2021. There we go. I'm remembering some things right here. Grubbs play calling says, Tim has been fine. I really don't like some of the things he's done, but as a first-time NFL OC with a horrendous offensive line, he's been okay. Yeah, it's been fine with that. Bigger issues are really defensively than anything else, I think, here when we stand and look at this right now. And the O-line, like you say, those are really the two biggest parts of the team standing out. Yalin says, you can complain about Grubb, but he has a new era spread offense scheme. How is that not better? Better exciting hire over a tired Darrell Bevel offense. What offense is good under bottom league offensive line? It's a great point, Yalin, and I agree with it. Yeah, I think Grubb's done just fine. Just fine. Tommy's Trey Flowers Brown has lost his grit, not playing with that edge he used to have. Definitely, he got beat up in this game. He's given up a couple completions this year too, and this is a contract year for him. So you thought you were going to get kind of the best version of him, but Kiri and Hawks Nest. I wasn't saying the line was pulled down. I meant they just dove at the D line's feet and didn't look who they were blocking. Oh, okay. And again, this is hard to. Having a chance to really look at the play a lot. So I've had a lot of people go, what do you think of what this play happened in the individual moment of it? It's one of those plays you got to kind of watch like 10 times to see what exactly happened. And I do the back-to-back shows, so I don't get a chance to really review what really occurred there. But again, too, it's one where I can get that play bothers people on it. But from my perspective with it, I'll be more of a, There's just other stuff in this game that were way bigger issues at play. And to me, I was always with a football game, you have a game like this, you've got 71 plays for the New York Giants. You got 58 plays for the Seattle Seahawks. To come down to pick out one play that's less than 1% of the total action of the game and say, well, it's one play. UD didn't bring the juice. He just said, bring Pete back as a defensive back coach. Maybe that's the way. Jack Dong, are either Lockett or JSN true wide receivers number twos? It's a good question. Good question. I think JSN's still trying to find how he's going to bust through. He looked all right. And, Lockett's played pretty well this year. I think you fitted Lockett into the role that you knew he was going to run into this year, which is come in there and work your way in at times in the game and find some roles and footing in the game to help out. And he's done that. I think Jason's been a little more disappointing in what he's done so far here. The guy says Geno's the only one worth watching the games for. He's playing great football. Tim says Brown better bounce back hard or trade drop, and what an awful game. It was brutal. It was brutal. Kieran says the center, left, and right guard all are looking at the ground and dove at the D-line's feet, and that's a special teams coordinator seeing bad technique on tape and exploiting it. Good point. Good point. Yeah. Yolland says, imagine it wasn't Geno, but Sam Howell running the offense. We'd be in nightmare shape. Good luck and says, yeah, Geno looks good. Usually if he makes an error, it is with a game on the line or a late on long to go type thing. His situational football continues to improve. Amen. Thought he played a really good game today. Braden says, I just can't see us beating the Niners, the Bills, the Falcons in the 3 weeks, but that is just recency bias, I guess. No, I think it's fair, Braden. These two performances have been eye-opening, and yeah, you want to say we got a long NFL season and flush it, move on to the next, but you also are sitting there going, yeah, but that was really bad the past 2 weeks. So I find myself in the same situation as you on that. I don't know how you beat all three of those teams. In the Falcons case, you got to go on the road to a 10 a.m. game. I don't know. Jordan says, I just watched the block kick. Both the center and guard were held down and allowed the guy to hop over them through. Oh, I'll check it out. It's a crappy play. Crappy play for a crappy day. To finish a crappy day. Tommy says we gave up a sack on max protect with the tight end in the back and with tight end and running back in the backfield. Can't be productive like that. No, you look like you had it picked up, and that's the play you ended up with, having Connor Williams one-on-one Lawrence, which didn't seem to need to be the case because you had the extra blockers to pick up the free rushers, but a blown play. How long until we hire Vanderbilt head coach? 10 years. DJ says, haven't heard anything from about Spoon. 5 games in, and I haven't heard anything good about him. He's been pretty good in coverage. He's been pretty good as a tackler. But has he let you feel like you got a difference maker out there on the field than what he's done so far in this new defense that you thought was really going to unleash him? No. Does he get anything done as a pass rusher right now when you blitz him? No. And you've sent him a lot. So it's been a bit of an underwhelming, almost, I don't want to go full on sophomore slump, but a sophomore depression, maybe. Christian, I agree. Laviska needs more fly sweeps, more touches, especially if you can't find a struggle early on in the game to find running room. If you're having early penetration and there's no room for Walker, then find some ways to get the gadget guys into play and make it work that way. And Grenade B, I got it. Mike was doing a power move by showing the whole game how Pete's defense doesn't work anymore, and the change is what is needed. Brilliant. 8D level chess there, Hand Grenade. 8D level chess. Yeah, Nagasis says the NFL already said it was legal play on the kick. Yeah, I think we can't get too caught up on the kick. I really think the more time, if we want to go after Harbaugh on it and say you didn't have the guys prepared or that, I'm with that. That needs to be corrected. But I think that this is more about in this game looking at some of the other stuff that happened in this game and spending way more time on that, because that's the stuff that going forward is going to be the stuff that replicates, that continues. And those are the trends that we want to stop and shut down and get closed up on that side of it. All right, well, we got about 3.5 hours we've gone through today after doing our stream today. So I've still got a breakdown video I've got to do, and we're going to be doing a very quick turnaround this week back over to the Thursday night game. So we'll go ahead and get the last bit of questions on in here today. I want to thank the Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the show. Underdog Fantasy sponsoring us throughout this year. You can use my code NEST or click down the top description link section below, and that will take you to Underdog Fantasy site. And on your first deposit, they will do a 2-for-1 match. So $100 down, $50 back. $200 down, $100 back. All the way up to $2,000 down, $1,000 back in your pocket on that initial deposit when you use my code NEST, or you can click in that link down the bottom description section, whichever below. We also have one other quick note I want to put on here too, as well as I've got the Bleacher Report breakdown show I'm doing over there. This is a really important gig for me. This is something I'd really like to continue to be able to do. So I've put down in the description link section below of this video a quick 30-minute wrap-up show over there that I did right after the game ended over on that Bleacher Report app. It is a separate app. If you click that link and you got the app downloaded, it will take you directly to my my video there on that app. But I'd really like to do this going in the future, guys. So even if you just play it and have it on and get the viewership on that, I'd really, really appreciate it, as that helps lock me in to be able to do that in the future. And it's a big feather in the cap of this channel to be able to go there and do those guest appearances. So if you guys can help me in that way, it's down here in the description link section below. Just click down in that description, link to the Bleacher Report post-game stream. Take you right there if you got the app downloaded. And again, a big, big helping hand to me if you guys can do that on my side of it. Bleacher Report's weird for me sometimes. I know it's odd with the different apps type of thing. Hand Grenade says, Jesse, Tuesday for Behind Enemy Lines and After Roundtable. That's right. We'll be doing a Behind Enemy Lines with Jesse of Last Second Sports on Tuesday. And then we will also be doing a Behind Enemy Line, or also a Roundtable. We'll be doing the NFC West Roundtable as well on Tuesday. So jam-packed, loaded schedule for you guys here as this NFL season just keeps on a chugging. DJ says Walker's 3 touchdowns, not enough. Need another. Yes, sir. Tommy, Atlanta has a potent offense and the defense is at least as good as New York Jets. Living in Georgia, I watch them weekly. Don't underestimate that team. I'm not. Not me at all, man. Especially with the way this team's playing right now. I ain't underestimating anybody. Nobody. Brandon Jana, I'm confident the Hawks will get some unexpected wins this season, at least 8-9. It's process. Tough day. Amen. Amen. Henry B, I got it. Mike was, sorry, I read that. My bad. Tim Schumi, can we teach Rayshawn Jenkins to learn how to tackle? Behind Trey Brown, he is high on my S list after this game. Inexcusable missed tackles. I agree with you that the missed tackles were there from him. Tim, he was playing with a cast on his arm, and at least on 2 of those missed tackles, he was trying to get his hands around the guy, and he couldn't bring him down because of the cast. I think you can make the argument that if he's got the cast, that maybe he can't play at that point if he can't tackle as well with the cast on his hand. But it does make it harder to knock him because you could just see where he couldn't wrap up. He couldn't get his fingers in on the guy and bring him down to the ground. Brian says, all right, well, we've had our stinker for the season. No more phoning it in. Amen, Brian. A mother effing M. Gibson says there's plenty of blame to go around, but Trey Brown was horrible. Yeah. Yeah, this was his probably worst game as a Seahawk. Just really was. Thank you guys for checking out that Bleacher Report show. Sorry, it's a bit of a pain in their hand grenade, but I do appreciate it. It's a big, helpful hand here to the channel for you guys going and checking that stuff out. Big time. Good luck and peace out to you too, man. Thank you for watching tonight. Tim says, I didn't realize he was playing with the cast. I will shift some of that blame to the coaching staff. Amen. Yeah, and I'm with you, though, on it. And where he's had some times this year where there's been a couple missed tackles with him, but yeah, I saw him a couple of those where you saw him wrapped around. He just couldn't. I mean, that thing was a full casted up, man. They gave him the full-on club thing. Too bad you can't use it like a club like you used to, There was one guy for the Raiders that had a broken thumb for 8 straight years, they said. And he just used to load up the cast and put, like, concrete in it. And tougher breed back in the day, you know what I mean? Tougher breed of football player. Y'all and Baker looks so stiff, he reminds me of a body cast victim. I don't know if he's at 100% or near 100% out there, but one of those guys that definitely did not look like he was on it as far as an intensity level in this game. He's already got kind of a look of a little bit of a kind of a low key, just, he's sort of chilling with the body language anyway, but it did stand out today in addition to it too. It did. And Tommy's right. 49ers hate it when you like this stream. So on your way out the door today, please hit that like button as it does help out this stream. It makes me show up on other Hawk fans who are trying to figure out this loss and understand it better. You can show them the way by hitting that like button. If you get a chance to, maybe sub on up as we're trying to get up over that 20,000 mark, and we're rolling along this year nicely. Got a great week here for you. Have some action, a quick turnaround here, which will hopefully make this loss a little bit easier for us to be able to swallow. Right back Thursday night, try to go make this happen against a Niner team that at least everybody else in this division is scuffling. At least you still have full control this season to go out there and turn around the fates off of this past 2 weeks, as embarrassing as it has been. There is a lot to clean up across the board. But there's a lot of reason to believe that this team can still get some of those things cleaned up. So as hard as it is to talk about some of these things tonight after a bad loss like this, as embarrassing a loss as it was, we still have everything fully within our control and our power to go out here and make some noise this season and see if we can get to a state of at least getting to a playoffs this year. And then once you get in, who knows at the end at that point. But a long way to go here for the Seahawks football team in 2024 by the looks of things over these past 2 games. I thank you guys for watching tonight. We had a ton of people in here, both in the live stream during the play-by-play and then also here for the post-game discussion. Thank you guys for that. Your guys' support here, even after a loss, I mean, it's tremendous. I was barely expecting we'd have in much of a turnout here after the loss, but you guys came in here, flooded up with a ton of donations to the channel tonight. Thank you guys for all of that tremendous support. As I know where we get on our emotions after a game like this. I know how hard it is after a game like this to kind of be in that kind of, giving mindset and state of things. So thank you, man. Thank you, women out there too, for all of you guys' support to the channel on this. You guys allow me to do what I do. I get to stream for 9 straight hours on a Sunday and do all the streams during the week because of this kind of support you guys bring to the table. You guys are awesome for doing that. I thank you for that. We're back on Tuesday with 3 shows or 2 shows lined up on Tuesday. Back on Wednesday with maybe 2 shows on that. We got to set up the B&B show a little bit prior to the Thursday game as well. So it will be soon. We will be back fast. Hold on, Seahawks fans. We might be in for a little bit of a bumpy ride this year, but here's the final thing I'm going to say. We don't know how this thing is going to finish off. So before you get to any conclusions, before you get to any determinants of this game, oh, well, I knew again this year, this is what we are. We don't know. Give it some time. Give McDonald some time to figure this out. Let's see where it is truly at the end of the year before we draw any kind of conclusions about this first season of the new, most youngest head coach in the entire NFL. My name is Brandon Kane. It's the Hawks Nest. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. But don't you ever forget, especially after a loss like this, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.